Chapter 380. Gu Qingshan released his inner sight to check the frozen lake, then silently nodded. Sure enough, this is the place. There seems to be something on the lake, Yi Feili couldn't help but say. Let's go. Gu Qingshan only said one word. He held the earth sword in his hand and quickly walked towards the surface of the lake. Yi Feili followed behind him. The two of them entered the lake and walked on top of the ice. As soon as they entered, they fell into a thick fog, unable to see anything around them. Impartial goddess voice came. Sir, I've lost your coordinates. That's normal, it's fine. Saying so, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but sigh. That's right, it's normal to lose your coordinates. In this overlapping space, a bone-chilling chill could be felt from the ground, almost freezing a person's bones. It was completely silent, only the fog continued to churn. Yi Feili couldn't help but say, I feel like something isn't right here. Pay attention to your feet, Gu Qingshan told him. My feet. Yi Feili was confused. All of a sudden, a few whispers could be heard. A very rude living person. That's right, he almost stepped on me just now. Such a living person. When I get out, I'm definitely going to chop off his head and eat it. Yi Feili was stunned. He slowly looked down at his feet. What's going on? Yi Feili exclaimed in shock. Faces. Countless faces. The entire surface of the lake was covered in human faces. Countless human faces were frozen in the lake, protruding from the surface of the ice. Some of the faces were still below the ice, while others were already rising up from the surface. Underneath the thick layer of ice, their bodies were completely frozen. Seeing such a terrifying and eerie scene, Yi Feili was completely stunned. Gu Qingshan patted his shoulder and was about to say something when the war god Ui lit up. The user has personally witnessed the frozen hell. The user has proven his conjecture. Apocalypse storyline mission completed. Quest reward. When the user repairs the Chao Yin sword, they can spend soul points to speed up the repair process. After Gu Qingshan finished reading these lines of words, they quickly disappeared. After that, a new notification appeared on the war god Ui. The appearance of the frost hell signifies the end of the world. Humans alone cannot defeat the dead of the frozen hell. Please continue to explore the lake to obtain more information. Gu Qingshan's figure flickered, rushing towards the center of the lake. Wait for me. Yi Feili called out and hurriedly followed. He did not want to be alone in such a treacherous and terrifying place. Under his feet, countless human faces were frozen in the lake, and there were also dead people who popped their heads out and cursed at him. Soon, Gu Qingshan and Yi Feili arrived at the center of the lake. In the middle of the lake there was a deep ice pit. A large piece of ice was missing from the smooth, mirror-like surface. Gu Qingshan's heart sank. That powerful dead person had already left this place. The Fuxi Emperor really did come to deliver his head. How strange, where did this piece of ice go? Yi Feili asked. It's gone, Gu Qingshan answered. He sighed a bit. Before the war even began, humanity's strongest had already become the enemy's guide. Impartial goddess, Gu Qingshan spoke. I'm here, humanity is facing a desperate situation, you need to do everything you can to find a certain thing, Gu Qingshan said. Please tell me, sir, a piece of ice, a large piece of ice, perhaps it can change shape and turn into other things, but it's still made of ice, Gu Qingshan added. There must be something extraordinary inside this piece of ice. As soon as you find it, tell me immediately. Very well, sir, from now on, I will do everything I can to find it, Impartial goddess replied. At this time, a few more lines of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui. Under the Fuxi Emperor's efforts, a powerful ruler of the frozen hell managed to leave this place. This king has brought his subordinates and has already begun to move. They will make this disaster happen even faster. You must stop this. Quest objective. Stop the Fuxi Emperor's next step in his plan, do your best to ensure humanity's stability, make sure not too many people die and slow down the spread of the frozen hell. Quest reward. reinforcements from Huang Quan will arrive in the human realm, fighting alongside humanity against the frozen hell. Quest hint: when a living being dies, they will produce death aura, and large amounts of death aura will speed up the spread of the frozen hell. Gu Qingshan quickly read through all the notifications. He froze in place, but in his eyes there was a glimmer of hope. Reinforcements. So there were reinforcements. In the past life, humanity didn't even manage to hold on until the reinforcements arrived before the world was destroyed. That wasn't just the frozen hell, it was a series of calamities that happened one after another, one after another, one after another, until the game crashed. So many factors combined to cause the world's rapid destruction. This time, I must do everything I can to slow down the spread of the frozen hell. Reinforcements. I wonder what kind of reinforcements they are, Gu Qingshan silently thought. Standing on one side, Yi Feili asked in irritation, "What exactly are these monsters?" "They're all dead people from the frozen hell of Huang Quan," Gu Qingshan answered. "Is this lake hell?" "No, this place is only a fingernail-sized corner of the frozen hell." Yi Feili abruptly raised his foot and stomped on the face of one of the monsters. The human face did not let out any cry of pain. It only stared at him viciously with a ferocious smile. "They can't feel pain," Gu Qingshan said. "Then I'll kill it." Yi Feili put more force into his foot. Boom! The layer of ice crumbled under his foot. A few hundred dead people escaped from the ice. "A living person! Eat him, get more power." "Don't take it, I only want his soul." The dead uttered a deafening roar, not even caring about the ice on their bodies as they charged straight at Yi Feili. A red glow appeared on Yi Feili's body, turning into a blood-red veil that covered all the dead. The dead twisted their bodies, trying to struggle, but their flesh and blood were completely wiped out by the blood-red veil. Very quickly, all that was left of the dead were piles of bones. The blood-red veil slowly disappeared. The bones fell to the ground. "Although they've died once, they weren't that strong," Yi Feili crossed his arms. "That's not the case, all the powerful dead have already left. The only ones left here are normal dead," Gu Qingshan continued. "By the way, you need to take a closer look at their remains." Yi Feili looked over, only to see the bones falling onto the ice, quickly sinking into it. Following that, flesh and blood appeared on top of the bones. The hundreds of bones quickly returned to their original appearance. Their faces reappeared on the frozen lake. The faces opened their eyes. All the dead were staring at Yi Feili. Their begrudging gazes caused Yi Feili to feel numb all over. "The frozen hell will soon spread to the entire world. From now on, you can only defeat the dead, but you won't be able to kill them all," Gu Qingshan said. Yi Feili's expression became serious and asked, "Can we really get rid of this frozen hell?" Gu Qingshan smiled, but his expression was full of bitterness. "An entire world turned into hell, who can destroy it?" He continued, "This is only the beginning. More importantly, humanity has existed on this planet for over 27,000 years since records began. Do you know what that means?" he asked. After a bit of thought, Yi Feili's face became pale. He asked in disbelief, "For over 20,000 years, all the dead have appeared in the human realm?" "That's not it. Those who went to the frozen hell are all heinous criminals," Gu Qingshan continued. "You can calculate it yourself. How many villains will be resurrected in the last 27,000 years of time? Not only that, according to scientific research, before humanity existed, there were other civilizations on this planet. According to archaeological research, there were at least 3 eras before humanity: the Giant Era, the Fiendkind Era, as well as an unconfirmed era of chaos. Chapter 381. Once the frozen hell spreads to the entire planet, Gu Qingshan shook her head and sighed, including humanity, all the villains of the 4 eras will awaken. Even if we can win against them, they'll quickly recover. Yi Feili couldn't help but ask, "Can't we talk about it and try to live in peace?" Gu Qingshan looked at him and answered, Eating the flesh and blood of living humans will allow them to regain their senses for a short period of time, allowing them to experience the wonders of this world just like they did when they were alive. Eating the souls of living humans will grant them the power of the dead. The more humans that die, the stronger they become. Can you imagine what their attitude towards this world would be like? Saying so, Gu Qingshan also felt a bit dejected. Yi Feili was stunned in place. Humans are their food, Yi Feili muttered. That's right, Gu Qingshan sighed. We can only deal with this frozen lake first, we can't let it spread, now we have to do everything we can. After dealing with this, we also have to think of a way to stop the Fuxi Emperor and his ancestors. If we can win against them, this world will have reinforcements from Huang Quan. This is at least a small sliver of hope, but it's still better than total despair. Gu Qingshan silently told herself. Yi Feili suddenly thought of something and sighed. If we can't kill these monsters, then I can't use them to evolve, Gu Qingshan replied. In the coming days, you'll have to think more about survival. Then we're not going to do anything? Yi Feili asked. Of course not, we need to use our brains to fight against it. While saying so, Gu Qingshan turned on her hollow brain and quickly operated it. What are you doing? Yi Feili curiously asked. Communicating with the goddess, making a few preparations, Gu Qingshan answered. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet started to shake. Following that, it started to shake left and right, shaking non-stop. Yi Feili looked into the distance and murmured, "What is that?" Gu Qingshan's hands did not stop moving as she also released her divine telekinesis to observe the distance. There was a deep hole in the ice. A huge gray humanoid figure crawled out of the hole. As soon as the monster appeared, all the faces on the ice shut their mouths tightly. The malevolent and resentful expressions on their frozen faces disappeared, replaced by indescribable fear. Yi Feili carefully looked at the monster and couldn't help but open her mouth wide. He had never seen anything like it. Just by lying on the ground, the huge humanoid figure was more than 10 meters tall. The densely packed human corpses were glued together to form the monster's limbs and torso. There were 2 places on its head that were covered in gray fog, which looked like its eyes. Beneath the gray fog, countless corpses sunk inwards, forming a deep and dark cave. That seemed to be its mouth. If such a terrifying monster appeared in a densely populated area, a lot of people would probably collapse just by looking at it. The monster peeked its head over, staring at Gu Qingshan and Yi Feili with 2 masses of gray fog. On its face, countless corpses were squeezed to the sides, the eye sockets and the mouth were slowly becoming distorted. It seemed very excited. Living souls. The monster spat out those words, then used its hands and feet to crawl towards them. Every time it moved its gigantic body, the ice lake would tremble. You go first, I need to arrange something, Gu Qingshan said. His hand was constantly moving on his hollow brain, apparently arranging something important. Yi Feili looked at the monster and muttered, "How interesting, I've never fought against such a huge monster outside of the game." The wings of bone on his back spread out and flapped. Yi Feili turned into a red streak of light, leaping through the air, flying back and forth, then slashed through the monster's head. Several hundred corpses on the monster's face were cut open by the red streak of light. The monster let out a resounding roar. Black blood splattered everywhere. Corpses fell from the monster's face one after another. But the monster didn't seem to notice it at all, still trying its best to stand up and grab the red streak of light. The red streak of light quickly flew to the sky. The monster roared again and slammed its fist into the ice. The cracked ice cubes were crushed into ice powder and pasted on its face. The places that were covered by the ice were soon covered with more corpses that were intertwined together. The monster returned to its original state. Seeing that, the red streak of light quickly flew down, circling around the monster, occasionally cutting large wounds on its body. Countless corpses fell from the monster's body. The monster knelt on the ground, trying to grab Yi Feili with both hands. Unfortunately, Yi Feili was too fast, and the monster's body was too large to be agile, so it couldn't grab Yi Fei Li no matter how hard it tried. So it's only ugly, not really strong, Yi Fei Li laughed. All of a sudden, the corpses on the monster's body began to move. As if they regained their consciousness, they all opened their mouths and screamed in pain. Countless screams gathered at once, causing even the air itself to ripple. Yi Fei Li covered his ears, losing control of his body, and fell from the sky. Bam! He crashed into the frozen lake, causing a spiderweb of cracks to appear on the surface. Meat! Live meat! It's hot, hurry, don't steal it. The faces on the frozen lake all moved towards Yi Fei Li. Their mouths were wide open, wanting to bite off a piece of meat from Yi Fei Li's body. Scum, you want to eat me? Yi Fei Li screamed as countless spikes grew from all over his body. These spikes were so sharp that they cut the faces as well as the frozen lake into pieces. The sky suddenly darkened. Yi Fei Li knew something was wrong and looked up. The monster's head was right above him, opened its mouth wide and tried to bite him. Boom! The monster's mouth hit the surface of the ice. In that split second, Yi Fei Li increased his speed to the limit, barely managing to escape from the monster's bite. A bunch of dead people, you dare to treat me as food, ah ha ha! Yi Fei Li squinted his eyes into a thin line as a strange smile appeared on his face. A burning red glow appeared in his hand. Yi Fei Li licked his lips and looked at the monster. I'm guessing you've been living too comfortably in hell that you don't know the horrors of the human realm. His hands began to elongate, turning into a pair of sharp blades. The crimson glow on the blades danced and drifted. His body moved and disappeared in the blink of an eye. A second later, the monster's entire head was cut off. The corpses that made up the head were scattered all over the ground. The red glow flashed again. The monster's arms and legs were also cut off. Thud! Its heavy body crashed into the ice, creating a deep crater. Yi Fei Li didn't stop there, slicing the monster's body into 7 to 8 pieces before flying back up. This time you should scram back to the bottom of the ice, he said while breathing heavily. He had already given it his all just now. The corpses on the ground crawled back up, grabbing, biting, hugging each other, then spontaneously gathered together. In just a few moments, the monster's head and limbs returned to their original state, then reattached to its body. The monster had fully recovered. Chapter 382. It's still not dead? Yi Fei Li couldn't believe it. The monster suddenly raised its head. The corpses on its face were squeezed out of shape as it opened its giant mouth. A mass of black mist was spat out by the monster. The fog seemed to have a life of its own as it shrieked and chased after Yi Fei Li. The monster spat out another mass of black mist. The two masses of black mist chased after Yi Fei Li back and forth. At some point, the black mist suddenly spread out. What the hell? Yi Fei Li didn't have time to dodge, so he clasped his hands together and formed a mass of blood light. The blood light quickly expanded, forming a sphere of isolation that completely enveloped him. The sphere of blood broke through the black mist and landed far away. Yi Fei Li looked at the numerous wounds on his body and clicked his tongue. It's already so powerful through a layer, wouldn't I be done for if I get hit? A mass of blood flame appeared in his hand. Die! The blood flame disappeared from his hand and reappeared on the monster's body. The blood flame enveloped the monster's head, burning intensely. Boom! Countless corpses were incinerated into nothingness. The only thing left of the monster's head was a pile of bones, finally collapsing on the frozen lake. But as soon as the bones touched the surface of the lake, they were filled with flesh and blood again in just a few breaths' worth of time. The monster once again propped itself up and crawled towards Yi Fei Li. Yi Fei Li's expression was bitter. It's so hard to deal with, I can't kill it at all. His heart gradually sank to the bottom of the valley. It's already so hard for me to deal with a single monster. If the entire world turns into a frozen hell, how will humanity survive? Just hurting a few parts of it isn't enough. We need to kill it completely for it to fall into slumber. Gu Qingshan's voice came from afar. Hearing Gu Qingshan's voice, Yi Fei couldn't help but sigh in relief and asked, "You're done?" "Yes, I'm here to help you," Gu Qingshan answered. He put his hollow brain away and flew over with his sword. "Let's attack together," Gu Qingshan shouted. "All right," Yi Fei said. The blood-red light covered Yi Fei's entire body. With a flash of red light, he charged straight at the monster. On the other side, Gu Qingshan locked her title to Talented General. Forming a hand seal, the earth sword flew out like a streak of light and pierced the monster's body. The world fell silent. Dong, 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 dong. The sound of the sword gleams continued to explode within the monster's body. Countless corpses fell from its body. Secret art, water flow severance. The monster grabbed the ice and the corpses and kept adding them to its body. "You're thinking quite well." As Gu Qingshan spoke, she activated her title skill, Rampaging Sword Aura. Rampaging Sword Qi. Every time you use this skill, the sword Qi will condense into a shadow and attack with the same amount of damage. Dong, 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 dong. The bombardment of the sword gleams rang out again. The frost and corpses on the monster's hand were all shaken off, and the wounds on its huge body continued to deepen. Gu Qingshan made a hand seal. Secret art, Silver Star. At the same time, he activated Rampaging Sword Qi. 10 streaks of light sliced through the monster's body like meteors. The monster couldn't hold on any longer and broke apart. "It's your turn," Gu Qingshan said. "Got it," Yi Fei replied. The blood-red light descended from above, turning into a thin veil that enveloped the countless corpses on the ground. Inside the veil, the flesh and blood of the corpses receded, leaving only white bones. This time, the monster was finally dead. It will fall into slumber until it fully recovers. The commotion that lasted for so long on the frozen lake finally stopped. The cold rain continued to pour. The raindrops heavily hit the ground, giving off a cacophony of noise. All the human faces on the frozen lake were silent, staring at the two people in the air without changing their expressions. No one knows what they were thinking. Gu Qingshan waved his hand to summon the earth sword back, silently hovering next to him. Yi Fei wiped the sweat off his forehead and asked, "Is it done this time?" "It's completely dead. It'll take a long time to revive again," Gu Qingshan answered. Yi Fei sighed in relief. "What kind of monster is this?" "It's probably a monster from another era, able to control dead humans. Even such a monster appeared." Yi Fei was full of worry. "What do we do now? What will happen to humanity from now on?" "We'll talk about that later. Right now we need to deal with this frozen lake right away," Gu Qingshan said. "Didn't you say that we can't deal with this hell?" Yi Fei curiously asked. "It's only appeared so far, it hasn't spread out yet, so we can deal with it," Gu Qingshan answered. Taking out her hollow brain, Gu Qingshan asked, "Have the calculations been completed?" Impartial goddess voice came. "The plan has been prepared, the corresponding calculations have also been completed. According to your request, military forces are currently being assembled. If there's any problem, you can tell me. Entering Fuxi territory requires permission from Fuxi's top brass. Leave that to me," Gu Qingshan said. He turned on his holobrain and contacted Zhang Yongho. "What's the situation?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Don't worry, Empress is always safe with me," Zhang Yongho said. "Tell her to talk to me. I'm here. Speak very quickly." Empress's voice came from the holobrain. Gu Qingshan then told her the truth. To make sure that Empress didn't believe him, Gu Qingshan turned on the screen to show her the situation of the lake. There was silence on the other side. After a while, Zhang Yongho muttered, oh my god, this world is done for." Empress tried her best to keep her tone normal. "From what you've said, he wants to resurrect the previous Fuxi emperors?" "It's not that he wants to, he's already done it." Empress went silent for a bit, then asked, "What do you want from me?" I need the Fuxi Empire's authorization. Impartial goddess will follow my plan and deal with this lake, Empress immediately said. I'll give you the authorization. I'll notify all the air defense forces to give impartial goddess special permission to enter the Fuxi Empire. Thank you. No need to thank me, I still haven't thanked you for saving my life. The call ended. Suddenly, a voice came. Whatever you do is useless, a face said. That's right, we've already died, we won't die again, another face said. Every face on the lake heard everything Gu Qingshan said just now. Another face said, let them do whatever they want when we all get out, the only thing they can do is let us eat their flesh and devour their souls. That's right, ah-ha-ha-ha, I really can't wait. Brats, you can only wait for your death. Death! 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 On the surface of the lake, every face was shouting in a frenzy. Before Gu Qingshan could say anything, the hollow brain in her breast pocket had already started to speak. Impartial goddess spoke. Sir, we're on our way, but a strange power has appeared in this area, interfering with my location of your hollow brain. This is the fluctuation of the frozen hell. Gu Qingshan silently thought. He said, switch to a surveillance satellite, directly locate me from the sky, impartial goddess replied. The fog is still spreading from the forest, the entire area is now covered in fog, I can't locate you from the sky, what do we do now? Yi Fei couldn't help but ask. The area of the lake is still spreading, there's no time to waste. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, then suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Yi Fei asked. I suddenly feel that this trip to the film academy isn't completely fruitless. Seeing Yi Fei's confused expression, Gu Qingshan explained. There was a movie from the age of old that inspired me, telling me how to deal with this situation. Could it be an ancient incantation? Yi Fei thought for a bit. I guess it's an incantation. Gu Qingshan raised the earth sword and pointed it at the sky. He recited a line. Chapter 383. Before she finished, the earth sword began to glow. Twisting arcs of lightning circled around the entire sword, gathered and activated by Gu Qingshan's hand seals. In a flash, a blinding blue arc of lightning enveloped the earth sword. Go, Gu Qingshan muttered. The arc of lightning rose from the earth sword, carrying a sky-piercing sword chi, broke through the layers of fog and shot towards the sky. Between heaven and earth, a blinding pillar of lightning appeared. The pillar of light reached all the way to the sky. Such a spectacular sight was immediately captured by impartial goddess. Sir, I've found you. We're coming. Yes, Gu Qingshan put her sword away, standing in the air with Yi Fei, silently waiting. In the silent sky, the sound of engines could be heard from afar. The sound became louder and louder. All of a sudden, a giant interstellar warship peeked out from the fog. An electronic voice came from the interstellar warship, echoing throughout the sky. The Federation's first interstellar fleet reporting for duty. Sir, following that, a second interstellar warship appeared from the fog. A third, a fourth, a fifth. A total of 24 giant starry sky battleships appeared from the fog. This was a powerful military force that could deal with a war of the highest intensity. These interstellar warships flew past Gu Qingshan and Yi Fei, heading towards the other end of the fog. Why are they leaving? Yi Fei couldn't help but ask. They have a mission, Gu Qingshan answered. While they were talking, 3 interstellar warships appeared from another part of the fog. The Federation's third interstellar fleet reporting for duty. Sir, I see you. Gu Qingshan raised her sword, greeting the interstellar warships. 21 interstellar warships followed the 3 before them, flying past them. Who's controlling the fleet? Yi Fei couldn't help but ask. Impartial goddess and the battleship AI she created, Gu Qingshan replied. How astonishing, Yi Fei murmured. The hollow brain in Gu Qingshan's pocket lit up. Impartial goddess answered. Phone Lake, 15, 1 kilometer long, 7, 6 kilometers maximum width, 4, 3 kilometers average width, 59, 1 kilometer long shoreline, 431. 64 kilometers total area, with an average water level of 329 m for many years, a shallow lake on the plains. Sir, we need 10 minutes to prepare. Do what you need to do, Gu Qingshan said. The AI returned to silence. On the frozen lake, a human head emerged from the ice and looked up at the sky. Has technology already developed to this point? The human head sighed. The next moment, he suddenly laughed maniacally. But such technology can't kill us. On the frozen lake, countless dead people burst into laughter. Yi Feili looked at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan just smiled. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Sir, the preparations are complete. Impartial goddess voice came. Thank you for your hard work. Yi Feili and I will be leaving, Gu Qingshan said. He waved to Yi Feili. We're leaving just like that? Yi Feili asked. Let's go, Gu Qingshan said. What about these monsters? It's been arranged. Gu Qingshan looked at the countless human faces on the frozen lake and said, I will make sure they understand the power of the living. The two of them flew up, turning into streaks of light as they flew towards the Federation's direction. He's gone. A human head looked up at the sky in confusion. All the human faces on the frozen lake were confused and doubtful. A human face spoke in confusion. Giant interstellar warships. I know about this technology, but no matter how powerful they are, after they kill us, we'll just reappear. Then, what did that brat just now mean? Rumble, rumble. 2 large interstellar warships hovered around the frozen lake and opened their hatches. Hundreds and thousands of mobile mechs appeared. They all carried large engineering impact guns, inside of which were specially made alloy hooks made from high-grade materials. Under impartial goddess command, all of the mechs moved very quickly. In just a few moments, every part of the lake had been pierced deep into the water by the alloy hooks. After finishing their work, the mechs all flew towards the interstellar warships. They stuck the other end of the alloy hooks onto the interstellar warship. A total of 48 interstellar warships were all fixed by the powerful cables. Each interstellar warship's position, angle, force, and speed had all been carefully calculated by impartial goddess. A few moments later, the 48 interstellar warships all moved at once. The 2 interstellar warships let out a deafening roar. They were trying their best to climb higher. The frozen lake, under the powerful traction of the 48 interstellar warships, was slowly lifted off the ground and into the sky. The 48 interstellar warships dragged the entire frozen lake up into the sky. Around them, other shuttles and warships were patrolling, all in a defensive stance, ready to attack any approaching threat. Just like that, the entire fleet of interstellar warships brought the frozen lake up into the sky. Are you trying to throw us to our deaths? Ahahaha. How naive. This way we'll be freed from the ice even faster. I can't wait to eat human flesh. On the surface of the frozen lake, countless faces were laughing mockingly. No one responded to them. Occasionally, some of the dead would poke half of their bodies out of the ice, but they would immediately be trapped in place by various beast-catching tools made of alloy. As the interstellar warships continued to accelerate, the frozen lake had already flown far into the sky. Very quickly, the dead couldn't laugh anymore. The fleet of interstellar warships didn't stop. The 2 fleets dragged the frozen lake directly away from Fei Li's planet and into space. Calling the first fleet, any signs of space monsters, over. There are no space monsters nearby, they won't affect our movement, over. Or requesting time verification, confirming acceleration time, over. Time verified, preparing to accelerate away from the planet's gravity, over. 3, 2, 1, begin acceleration. The 48 interstellar warships began to accelerate at the same time. After an intense acceleration, the fleet of interstellar warships left the planet's gravity. The frozen lake also left the planet's gravity. From now on, the frozen lake can no longer return to the planet. Begin release. All the hooks on the 48 interstellar warships were released. The rope was released from the interstellar warship. The frozen lake was also released from the interstellar warship. But due to the inertia, the frozen lake maintained its original speed as it continued to fly towards the depths of space. If nothing unexpected happens, the frozen lake will continue to fly in the darkness of space. Maybe if something unexpected happens, the frozen lake will be captured by another barren planet's gravity, turning into a frozen moon. Or maybe this small piece of frozen hell will be swallowed by a space monster, digested inside its stomach until it dies. Chapter 384. In Space. 48 giant interstellar warships parted, drawing a beautiful arc as they headed back to the planet. The frozen lake passed by them and disappeared into the darkness of space. The countless faces on the surface of the lake looked around. They never thought that returning to the human realm from hell would lead to such an unimaginable future. The faces all went crazy. They screamed, cursed, and cursed without stopping. Looking at the frozen lake from the darkness of space, you could see the countless faces on the surface of the lake. But in a vacuum environment, their voices couldn't be transmitted, only their mouths could be seen opening and closing. It was like a comedy or an old silent movie. The frozen lake drifted in space for 9 days, finally welcoming its new destiny. A space monster with eyes all over its body opened its mouth, stuck out its tongue and lightly licked the strange white dot into its mouth. Waves of coolness passed through the taste buds, and the tip of the tongue felt a slight but continuous throbbing sensation, as if it was violently resisting the penetration of saliva. The space monster put the white dot on the tip of its tongue and enjoyed the taste. After a while, it suddenly stopped, opened its eyes and looked around. Such delicious food, are there any more around here? The mountaintop mansion. The news was playing on the TV. His Excellency the President was shaking hands with a respected senator. The senator was smiling with a respectful expression. But the President didn't show any expression, instead giving off a solemn and heavy aura. The commentator spoke. Today, the Baisha County Senator and the President have reached an agreement. It's hard to imagine, the two of them who were once at odds with each other can now be happy and at peace. The Senator joked that he would pay close attention to the President's upcoming speech to decide whether or not to support the President in the election. The President expressed his appreciation and understanding for this. Liao Xing stared at the TV, then suddenly gulped down a mouthful of beer. He opened his dead fish eyes wide, staring at the President on the TV without blinking. It's not a clone this time, no, this is too big, I need to tell him, he muttered. Since he had made up his mind, Liao Xing took out his phone and contacted Gu Qingshan. Where are you? The Fuxi Empire's border. I'm currently on my way back with Yi Fei Li, Gu Qingshan answered. I can't wait. I will tell you right now that the President on TV is not a clone. How do you know? Look. The clone has a memory problem, and there will be a slight interruption in his thinking from time to time. From the outside, his pupils will occasionally dilate unconsciously. People will think that he is interested in something, which is why his pupils dilate normally, but I know that this is a physiological manifestation of a human thinking interruption. How did you notice? Gu Qingshan asked. Liao Xing went silent for a second, then spoke in a low voice. Back then, Tang Jun gave me a clone with memories. I used it to escape the Nine Lords' pursuit, so I know this, Liao Xing continued. I've analyzed Tang Jun's experimental data and combined it with the assassination attempts of the President. I believe that the President's clones have been used up. Tang Jun is already dead. The President will no longer have a clone with memories, so he can only come out personally. There was silence on the communicator. If that's the case, if there's another assassination attempt, the President will die. All right, I understand, Gu Qingshan said. Gu Qingshan hung up. The President's real body has appeared in front of everyone. Since the Fuxi Emperor kidnapped Tang Jun, he must know how many clones the President has. If he wants to deal with the President, if he wants the Federation to fall into chaos, He will definitely find a chance to act. Impartial goddess Gu Qing-shan called out. I'm here, sir. Is the martial saint still guarding the president's office? As soon as he received my message, he's already standing guard at the president's office. That's good to hear, with the martial saint Zhang Zongyang personally guarding. As long as the president doesn't go out, there shouldn't be any problems for now. While Gu Qing-shan was thinking, Yi Fei called out to him. What is it? Gu Qing-shan asked. Look below, Yi Fei said. Gu Qing-shan looked down to observe the ground below. In the vast wilderness, quite a few places are being covered in frost. This frost is spreading at a visible speed, spreading everywhere. This spreading speed has completely surpassed the normal phenomenon of frost forming. Fortunately, this is the border between two countries, so there's no one around, so there's no panic in human society. While flying, Yi Fei loudly asked, If the entire world is covered in frost, what will we do? Gu Qing-shan smiled bitterly. I'm also thinking about that. In the past life, humanity couldn't find a way to deal with it. Humanity went extinct. The mountaintop mansion. When Gu Qing-shan arrived, Liao Xing was holding a book, seriously reading it. What are you reading? Gu Qing-shan asked. A new field of research. Liao Xing closed the book and put it aside. On the cover of the book, the words genetic theory were written in large letters. Gu Qing-shan glanced at it, then sat down across from Liao Xing. So you're still researching this? Gu Qing-shan asked. To reminisce about an old friend, Liao Xing answered. What do you think about your friend's death? Gu Qing-shan asked. Liao Xing answered. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Tang Jun was kidnapped under the protection of a professionist. Liao Xing was confused. After he was rescued, he immediately went to see the president, but as soon as he arrived at the presidential palace, he suddenly died, which means he didn't even have time to say anything to the president, Gu Qing-shan said. There weren't a lot of people there at the time, so there weren't any records, Liao Xing dejectedly said. Gu Qing-shan muses. That's what I think. Go ahead. Tang Jun's death was done by the Fuxi Emperor. The Fuxi Emperor? Liao Xing sat up straight, grabbing the armrest with both hands. Why would he do that? As Gu Qing-shan was about to say something, the door was pushed open. Yi Fei rushed in. Something's wrong. He spoke in a low voice, his expression a bit fearful. Gu Qing-shan and Liao Xing both stood up. What's going on? Gu Qing-shan asked. Lu Shijun said she's about to collapse, Yi Fei answered. How could that be? Gu Qing-shan didn't expect that. Lu Shijun was Yi Fei's ex-girlfriend. Now as a ghost, she's living together with Yi Fei. Normally, ghosts can exist for a very, very long time. As soon as they said that, the void of space moved. The earth sword appeared on its own. A heavy voice as heavy as a mountain came from the sword. It's the ghosts of hell causing trouble, Sha. The earth sword flashed and disappeared from the room. Gu Qing-shan and Yi Fei both followed the earth sword and flew towards Yi Fei's room. A tombstone stood in the middle of the room. As Gu Qing-shan's body glowed, she saw a beautiful girl sitting on top of the tombstone with a sorrowful expression. Her figure was becoming thinner and thinner, as if she was about to dissipate. And in the void there was a cold wind blowing. The earth sword drew an arc in the air, and slashed at a certain point in the void of space. A sharp scream of pain and hatred resounded. Black blood splattered from the void of space, but nothing could be seen. The earth sword let out a resounding chime. All evil spirits and wraiths in front of me shall not cause any evil deeds of hell. Ho! The earth sword gave off an invisible wind current that howled back and forth across the entire room. The wind was swirling around, as if trying to catch something. Following that, the earth sword flew up and stabbed at a certain point in the void of space. In an instant, the wind dissipated. All sounds returned to silence. No more sounds could be heard from the void of space. Chapter 385. It was now that the Earth Sword flew back and landed next to Gu Qingshan. The Earth Sword was originally a divine weapon used to worship the heaven and earth in the age of old, capable of communicating with divinities. Back in Shen Wu world, when Gu Qingshan faced her tribulation, it had also killed the ghosts and Tianma that appeared during the tribulation. Gu Qingshan already knew how powerful the Earth Sword was, so she wasn't too surprised. But Liao Xing, who was standing on one side, was completely dumbfounded. A sword that can talk? That doesn't make sense. Liao Xing muttered in shock. Cultivation scriptures and whatnot, because there are professionists in this world, Liao Xing can still accept it. But a sword that can talk, and can even kill invisible entities, this has completely toppled his worldview. Yi Feili didn't care that much and hurriedly asked, "How is Lu Shijun now?" Gu Qingshan used her spirit energy to look at the tombstone. But Lu Shijun's figure was already so thin that she couldn't even see it anymore. "Not good," Gu Qingshan shouted, tapping her inventory bag, and took out a common spirit funnel formation plate. As she infused it with spirit energy, the formation plate shined brightly. A light breeze appeared in the room, followed by a faint mist. A spirit funnel formation. Gu Qingshan took out another formation plate and set it up again. For pillar prohibition formation. The 4 pillars are earth, water, fire, and wind. These aren't the elements, but the laws that support the existence of the world. This formation uses the spirit energy of earth, water, fire, and wind to create a small world that's isolated from the outside world. The spirit energy of earth and water combined with the 4-pillar prohibition formation to form a small world filled with spirit energy. Spirit energy of the world nourishes all things, including ghosts and spirit. A small world that's isolated from the outside world can protect ghosts and spirits from any unknown factors. The 2 formations activated at the same time. In just a few moments, Lu Shijun's figure stabilized. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief. Although maintaining these 2 formation plates requires spirit stones, Gu Qingshan has the entire Baihua sect's inheritance and reserves. With the spirit stones he can guarantee that these 2 formations will run for a few thousand years without a problem. A few moments later, with the nourishment of the spiritual energy, Lu Shijun's body gradually solidified. She looked at her own figure in amazement, patted her chest, and let out a long breath with lingering fear. She gratefully said a few words to Gu Qingshan. Of course, only Yi Feili could hear what she said. Yi Feili also heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to Gu Qingshan and said, "She said that she wanted to thank you for saving her life, but she's already dead, so I don't know if it's a life-saving grace or something else. Anyway, thank you." He placed his hand on Gu Qingshan's shoulder and solemnly said, "I want to thank you even more for helping me save her." Gu Qingshan's thoughts were elsewhere. He asked the Earth Sword, "What was that just now? It seems to be different from the monsters that appeared in my heavenly tribulation." "Of course it's different," the Earth Sword replied. "The ghost just now was a hellspawn of the frozen hell." Gu Qingshan asked. "A hellspawn of the frozen hell? If that's the case, it should represent the order of Huangquan. Why did it attack Lu Shijun?" "A hellspawn of Huangquan is a type of existence that suppresses the wraiths of hell. I don't know why it did that either," the Earth Sword added. "But it really was absorbing that ghost soul. This is something that the hell of Huangquan doesn't allow, so I killed it." Gu Qingshan didn't ask any further. He looked at Lu Shijun's soul and thought for a bit. "Yi Feili, I have a technique here that can help her condense her soul. Ask her if she's willing to learn it," Gu Qingshan said. As Yi Feili was about to ask Lu Shijun already nodded. Of course she could hear their conversation. After being with Yi Feili for so long, she knew how powerful this person in front of her was. Gu Qingshan tapped his inventory bag and took out a white brick. After thinking for a bit, he also took out a thin piece of jade. Gu Qingshan copied a portion of the Ghost Cultivator's technique from the white brick and put it into the jade. This is a cultivation technique. After you learn it, you'll be able to condense your soul and body. When you reach a higher realm of cultivation, you'll be able to be like a normal person again, able to truly feel the world. At that time, you'll be no different from a living person when you speak. Yi Fei doesn't need a god's chosen skill to hear you. Gu Qingshan lightly put the jade on the tombstone. He then formed a hand seal and infused it with spirit energy. A dot of light appeared on his fingertip. His fingertip slightly moved, sending the dot of light to Lu Shijun's forehead. The dot of light disappeared. "What is this?" Yi Fei nervously asked. "I've bestowed a technique on her. Don't worry," Gu Qingshan answered. Lu Shijun's eyes showed a bit of understanding, bowing to Gu Qingshan again and again. She learned how to read the jade tag. This was the simplest technique, so Gu Qingshan was able to do it easily. She said thank you, Yi Fei said. It's fine, ask her why she was suddenly attacked by a hellspawn, Gu Qingshan said. Lu Shijun's eyes were filled with fear, quickly explaining everything with gestures. A strange force was guiding her, telling her to go somewhere, but when she resisted it, she began to dissipate on her own. Yi Fei repeated what he had said. Go somewhere? Ask her where it is, Gu Qingshan said. After asking, Yi Fei told Gu Qingshan. Fuxi Empire, Barren Cloud Valley. The two of them looked at each other, seeing the seriousness in each other's eyes. They had just returned from Barren Cloud Valley, so of course they knew it was the frozen hell. According to the Earth Sword, the Huangquan Hellspawn are supposed to suppress the wraiths, but now they're helping the dead of hell to obtain living souls. The meaning of this was terrifying. Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled something. When Lu Shijun died, there was also a guiding force that appeared, but it was cut off later on. That's why she was able to stay in this world. Gu Qingshan immediately asked, when you died, was the guiding force the same as the one just now? You have to think carefully about this before you answer me. Seeing how serious he was, Lu Shijun took a moment to recall before giving the answer. She said it was completely different, Yi Fei said. Can you sense the difference between these two guiding forces? Gu Qingshan asked further. She said the first force is warm and full of compassion, but the second force. Yi Fei looked at Lu Shijun. Lu Shijun thought for a bit, then said 3 words. Cold. Evil. Powerful, Yi Fei repeated. Gu Qingshan silently nodded. The first type of soul receiving power disappeared, and was replaced by the second type of evil receiving power. The guiding forces are all different. Perhaps there's something wrong with the entire hell of Huangquan? This was something that humans in the past life didn't know. During the last few days of the past life, there were so many calamities that everyone was on the verge of death that they didn't have the time to investigate the truth of the frozen hell. Gu Qingshan sighed. If there really was something wrong with the entire hell of Huangquan, then the frozen hell was only the beginning. According to the cultivation world's understanding of Huangquan, there were many layers of hell. The problem now isn't just the frozen hell. Chapter 386. While Gu Qingshan was thinking, his hollow brain lit up. Your Highness Empress, what happened? Gu Qingshan asked. I'm only telling you about this right now, make sure you don't tell anyone else. Empress lowered her voice and said. It was completely silent on the other side, only her voice could be heard. Seems like she's avoiding everyone else to talk to Gu Qingshan alone. Go ahead, Gu Qingshan said. Iron Shroud shut off my authority. Empress's voice carried a hint of fear. Iron Shroud is the Fuxi Empire's ultimate AI, but the Empire has never used it for civilian use. Iron Shroud only has one purpose, to deploy the country's military. The Empire's royal family uses Iron Shroud to command the 3 armies and deploy for war. Once Iron Shroud is activated, all troops must unconditionally follow Iron Shroud's orders, otherwise they'll be charged with treason. Aside from you, what about everyone else's authority? Gu Qingshan immediately asked. Aside from him, everyone else's authority has been revoked, they can't be used, Empress answered. He is the Fuxi Emperor. Gu Qingshan's heart sank. Iron Shroud's highest authority belongs to the Fuxi Emperor, but he used it to revoke everyone else's authority. Right now, he's the only one who can command the entire Fuxi Empire's military. Let's keep in touch. Tell me immediately if anything happens, Gu Qingshan said. I heard you're quite close to the president of the Federation? Empress asked. Not bad. If anything happens, you have to help me, Empress said. I promise, don't worry, Gu Qingshan said. The call ended. Even if Empress wasn't Anna's aunt, Gu Qingshan would still do her best to help her. The Emperor likes to fight. Empress is the one who maintains peace. She's an important force in stabilizing the Fuxi Empire. The call ended. Gu Qingshan quickly left Yi Fei Li's room. He came out of the mountaintop mansion and stood still in front of the mansion. To forge or repair a weapon, you need a furnace, a bellows, a forging hammer, an anvil, pliers, and a grindstone. After completing the Apocalypse storyline quest, he could now use soul points to quickly repair the Chao Yin sword. Right now, I need to take this time to see if I can repair the Chao Yin sword. The sword control art required at least 2 swords to be able to attack and defend as one. Hell was approaching. Gu Qingshan had to increase her strength as much as possible. Holding the 7-colored fragrance bag, Gu Qingshan sent her inner sight into it. Inside by Huasek's storage, the items were all over the place. A considerable portion of the items had obvious personal traces. Some of the furnaces and array discs were even engraved with the names of sects and people. Seiji didn't know if 100 Flowers Fairy had defeated her, or if she had taken these items from her. In any case, these items were randomly piled up in a messy pile. It would take a long time to find a single thing in here. Gu Qingshan always had a headache looking for things. When I have time in the future, I must tidy up this place, he swore to himself. After a while, he finally managed to gather a full set of smithing tools. He had already comprehended the sword repair method before. Now that everything was ready, the repair began. Without waiting for Gu Qingshan's order, the Chao Yin sword jumped out of the void of space by itself and excitedly lay down next to the furnace. It was anxiously flipping around. Don't be impatient, stay calm, Gu Qingshan told it. The Chao Yin sword stopped. But while it was lying still, a faint clanking sound came from the furnace. Gu Qingshan looked over, only to see the Chao Yin sword lying on top of the furnace, lightly trembling. Don't be nervous, it'll be fine, Gu Qingshan helplessly said. I didn't learn so many smithing techniques for nothing. Gu Qingshan formed a hand seal and infused the furnace with spirit energy. The furnace lit up. Several dozen materials were released, floating in the air. When the furnace's temperature reached the required level, Gu Qingshan followed the repair order and put the 7 materials inside. Now, he needed to patiently wait for these materials to liquefy. A few lines of text appeared on the War God UI. The user can now use soul points to speed up the repair process. We detected that the user is currently smelting materials. Would the user like to speed up the melting process? Yes, Gu Qingshan immediately answered. Spend 3 soul points to speed it up by 1 hour. Spend 5 soul points to speed it up by 2 hours. Spend 10 soul points to melt it down immediately. Melt it down immediately, Gu Qingshan said. Inside the furnace, the heat increased. The 7 materials melted together to form a 7-colored liquid. Gu Qingshan put the Chao Yin sword into the furnace. He carefully released his inner sight to control the 7-colored liquid and smeared it all over the body of the Chao Yin sword. A notification popped up on the War God UI again. It will take 3 days for the materials to completely melt into the sword. Would the user like to speed up the process? Yes, Gu Qingshan answered. Spend 10 soul points to speed it up by 1 day. Spend 20 soul points to speed it up by 2 days. Spend 30 soul points to melt the materials down immediately, Gu Qingshan said. Immediately, with soul points spent, the system responded. Inside the furnace, the 7-colored liquid was quickly absorbed into the Chao Yin sword. Next up was the processing of the other materials. Would the user like to wait a minute? Gu Qingshan cut the system off. Can't you just take all the soul points at once? You're cutting my flesh piece by piece, it's affecting my mood, he protested. The system went silent for a second, then replied. In consideration of the user's forthright attitude, taking 560 soul points at once will speed up the repair process. How do I speed it up? Gu Qingshan asked. Whenever you start a repair process, it will be completed immediately, the system answered. Gu Qingshan checked his soul points. Quite a lot of soul points left, it even gave me a round number, he commented. Would the user like to spend 560 soul points to speed up the repair process? Yes, sure enough, after spending 560 soul points, the repair speed of the sword increased by leaps and bounds. A few minutes later, as the Chao Yin sword was only a few steps away from completion, Gu Qingshan's phone vibrated. Gu Qingshan ignored it, wanting to finish repairing the Chao Yin sword in one go before anything else. The phone rang 4 to 5 times, but he didn't pick it up. Impartial goddess voice suddenly came. Sir, you must pick up this phone call. Why? Gu Qingshan was surprised. The world situation has changed. This is Fuxi Empress's emergency phone call. Gu Qingshan had no choice but to stop what he was doing. Inside the furnace, the Chao Yin sword let out a low moan of grievance. Gu Qingshan pretended not to hear it and took the call. You finally picked up. Empress's voice came from the other side. Your Highness, what exactly is it? Gu Qingshan noticed something ominous from the other side's tone. Empress answered. The Empire's mobile mech squadron is currently moving towards the border. They will soon reach the border between the Empire and the Federation. Furthermore, the Empire's 7 great fleets have also begun to gather. Why didn't you? As Gu Qingshan spoke, she suddenly realized. Iron Shroud. Only the Emperor can command Iron Shroud. Chapter 387. The Desert Oasis Palace. There was no one around. Empress stood alone on one side of the throne. She lightly stroked the throne. Her expression was one of nostalgia and sorrow. After a while, Empress took out her holobrain, opened a certain interface and keyed in a long string of passwords. The interface changed to a completely blank space. This was a special safe house. Other than herself and the Fuxi Emperor, no one else knows about this place's existence. This was a secret that only belonged to the two of them. Empress spoke to the holobrain. Last time you said the palace was old and wanted to spend money to repair it. I got mad at you and didn't agree. But I've changed my mind. From now on, you can repair it wherever you want. I won't stop you. You occasionally like to leave the Empire and go sightseeing. I once scolded you for being irresponsible to the country. From now on, no matter where you want to go, I'll go with you. I won't say anything bad about you. That woman of yours, I've never allowed her to appear in public. I'll also apologize to you. I'll take her to the palace tomorrow. Empress wiped the corner of her eyes and said, Come back, please. She looked at the holobrain and held her breath. The holobrain was blank. A few dozen seconds later, a line of text appeared on the holobrain. Verona, if you appear in hell after you die, I'll make you my empress again. On the other side. The Federation. The empty field in front of the mountaintop mansion. Gu Qingshan put down her phone. War. A war between two superpowers is about to erupt. Countless people will die in this war. Once a large number of people die, the aura of death will only accelerate the spread of the frozen hell. The dead will invade, and the entire world will become their paradise. Even the 9 lords won't be able to fight against hell. Since the Emperor chose this time to declare war, it can only mean one thing. The Emperor has completely turned his back on humanity and stood on the side of his ancestors. The Emperor wants to become an undying dead and rule the world? Gu Qingshan went silent for a bit, then sighed. He decided to ignore everything else for now and focus on repairing the Chao Yin sword first. After all, after 2 more steps, the Chao Yin sword will recover. The situation had become extremely grim. He had to awaken to the sword immortal realm as soon as possible. Gu Qingshan began to repair the Chao Yin sword again. His movements became faster. Time was of the essence. After a while, white smoke suddenly rose from the red furnace. Whoosh, whoosh. When water and fire met, the furnace was immediately extinguished. A cool stream of water rushed out of the furnace and flew into the sky. More and more mist appeared in the air. Then, the water vapor spread, and the whole mountain was covered in water vapor. A small fish was swimming freely in the water. When it discovered Gu Qingshan, it swung its tail and swooped down, circling around Gu Qingshan a few times. A few breaths later, the stream of water returned to the furnace and turned into a longsword. In an instant, all the water vapor disappeared. The small fish landed on the sword and formed two strange characters on the hilt. These two words were Chao Yin, the name of the sword. In the next moment, the Chao Yin sword's blade began to shine brightly. This light then condensed into four characters that were deeply embedded into the blade. The light on the characters slowly faded away. The sword returned to normal. Only once in a while could you see that the sword was covered in water vapor. The sword leapt up and landed in Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan raised the sword and seriously looked at the Chao Yin sword's blade. The four characters had already disappeared, but the two characters on the hilt were still there. These two characters were Chao Yin. The system had already explained this to her before. Then, what were the four characters on the blade? Gu Qingshan looked at the war god UI. Sure enough, a few lines of glowing text had appeared. An ancient sword, named Chao Yin? In the age of old, Shen Wu world was an endless ocean. When the divinities left, they forged this sword to guard the four seas. The wielder of this sword is the king of the seas. This sword has the weapon spirit thaumaturgy. Even a sea of bitterness can pass. Even a sea of bitterness can pass? What kind of thaumaturgy is this? Gu Qingshan hurriedly asked the system. Ting. Thaumaturgy related to the divinities cannot be revealed. Please ask the weapon spirit yourself. Gu Qingshan was stunned. Thinking about it, when I first obtained the earth sword, it was also 100 Flowers Fairy who explained the earth sword's thaumaturgy. Gu Qingshan raised the Chao Yin sword and asked, "What does even a sea of bitterness can pass mean?" The four hidden characters on the blade lit up. Gu Qingshan replied, "I know it's those characters, but I don't know what they do." The Chao Yin sword let out an anxious woo-woo sound. "Don't ask, it's a weapon spirit that can't communicate with words." The earth sword suddenly appeared in the air and said, "Why is that?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Some weapon spirits just can't speak, that's normal, you need to slowly sense and communicate with it," the earth sword answered. Gu Qingshan suddenly remembered something. "That's right," he asked the earth sword. "How did you know that monster was a hellspawn of Huang Quan?" "A hellspawn is the smallest demon of Huang Quan," the earth sword answered. "I can communicate with the divinities of all worlds, so of course I know their identity and history." Gu Qingshan recalled the system's description of the earth sword. Earth sword, weighs 86,370,000 tons, has the weapon spirit thaumaturgy. Bear your own weight. This sword was a divine weapon used to offer sacrifices to the world in the age of old, capable of communicating with the divinities. Just as I thought. Gu Qingshan nodded, then curiously asked, "You can communicate with the divinities, what do you say to them?" "The same as a hellspawn," the earth sword answered. Gu Qingshan facepalmed, speechless. So killing the other party is a form of communication. This really is how swords communicate. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, "What if you run into a powerful demon?" "Run. I once hid in the space vortex for 10,000 years, but I can't talk about this anymore, otherwise a divinity might sense it," the earth sword answered. "Fine," Gu Qingshan sighed. He looked at the war god UI. A line of glowing text appeared, followed by a new quest. Quest 1. Obtain the two swords, completed. now issuing Quest 2. Command as one's own arm, Quest objective. Fully fuse the two swords into your thought sea, Quest begin. Reading that, Gu Qingshan silently nodded. Keeping swords in the thought sea was a basic skill for a sword saint. Powerful sword saints could summon their flying swords with a single thought. So this was also a necessary quest. He could put the earth sword into his thought sea at any time, so could the Chao Yin sword. But now that the Chao Yin sword had been repaired, it was still in the process of familiarizing itself with itself. It was essentially a new sword, and an incredibly powerful one at that. Gu Qingshan couldn't just put it into his thought sea right away. It would take about a day to familiarize himself with this sword again. That's fine, it's only a day. Gu Qingshan temporarily put the quest aside and returned to reality. He called out, "Impartial goddess, I'm here, can you hack into Iron Shroud?" Iron Shroud is completely cut off from the rest of Fushi's network. It doesn't receive any outside information, only Fushi royal family members can log in, so I can't do anything, Impartial Goddess answered. Gu Qingshan then asked, "Can Iron Shroud's authority be transferred?" "No, unless Iron Shroud's commander dies in battle, only then will the commander be transferred." Who is Iron Shroud's second commander? Fushi Empress. In other words, Iron Shroud's authority will only be unlocked if the Emperor hands over his authority, or if someone kills the Emperor. Gu Qingshan asked. Correct. Chapter 388. I have something to report to you, Impartial Goddess suddenly spoke. Due to the Fushi military's large-scale movements, Marshal Saint Zhang Zongyuan has left the presidential office and is currently heading to the front line. Gu Qingshan immediately became serious and asked, "Where's the president?" "The president is busy with other matters, so he hasn't had time to respond to my call." "He hasn't responded to your call, what is he busy with?" "The pre-war arrangements of the three armies." Furthermore, the president will be making a televised speech in half an hour to mobilize the entire Federation. No one could believe that the two largest countries in the world are about to start a full-scale war. Countless people will die in this war. The Marshal Saint has gone to the front line. That won't do, the president's situation isn't good, I need to go see the president right away, Gu Qingshan said. Gu Qingshan's figure moved and flew up. The shuttle picked him up in the air and headed towards the capital. This was a mountain forest in the outskirts of the capital, so it only takes a few moments to reach the presidential office. While Gu Qingshan was repairing the Chao Yin sword, Liao Xing was waiting in the room. He was smoking, waiting for Gu Qingshan to finish her work before asking her about the whole thing. But Gu Qingshan just flew away like that. Liao Xing quickly put out his cigarette, turned on his holobrain and contacted Gu Qingshan. "Why did you leave so quickly? You haven't finished what you wanted to say just now." "I'll explain it to you later. The situation is very urgent right now. I need to go see the president right away," Gu Qingshan said. The call ended. "Damn it!" Liao Xing slapped his holobrain and cursed. "What exactly is it?" Yi Fei Li scowled. "I still don't know the truth of the matter. This is a form of torture for a scientist." Liao Xing breathed heavily, dejectedly. "Even if you know, what can you do?" Yi Fei Li asked. Liao Xing stared at her, speechless. Yi Fei Li said, "Since you already have a cultivation technique, why don't you hurry up and improve your strength? This way you can take revenge on your own, and you don't have to trouble others for everything." "Humph." Liao Xing slammed the door and left. Yi Fei Li stood in place, not saying a word. The ghost of the girl came and said something to him. Yi Fei Li looked at the girl and smiled gently. "I'm doing this for his own good. He needs a little stimulation. Otherwise, if he falls too far behind, no one will be able to help him." He had practiced the incantation given to him by Gu Qingshan, and now he could see her. The girl whispered something in his ear. "All right, you're kind-hearted. I'll go talk to him." Liao Xing took out his holobrain. "Impartial goddess." "Yes, Mr. Liao." Tell me the whole story immediately, Liao Xing asked in an unprecedentedly serious tone. I need to ask Her Excellency Gu Qing Shan first, Impartial Goddess said. After a long while, Impartial Goddess told him everything that happened recently. So many things, why didn't you notice it earlier? Liao Xing angrily asked. Mr. Liao, when humans decide to avoid all kinds of surveillance devices, even I can't do anything about it. Then you should at least tell Gu Qing Shan about Tang Jun's matter. Liao Xing loudly shouted. I can't do anything about Tang Jun's matter, why not? Powerful professionists move very quickly, even I can't stop them. I'm only a machine, I can't control humanity's desire to commit crimes and kill, Impartial Goddess answered. So many lives were lost, how can you be so useless? Liao Xing shouted. The hollow brain shut down. Impartial Goddess cut off the connection. The S.W. Divine Temple Interstellar Fortress. On the large screen, all the data disappeared. A sobbing emoji appeared. While deep inside the Divine Temple, all the equipment that once belonged to the game of Eternal Champions had been destroyed one by one. No one knew how Impartial Goddess did it. The sobbing emoji quickly disappeared. After that, a few lines of text appeared on the screen. Project Clearance. Top Secret Project Insiders. 2 Project Name. High-Level World Laws and Power Suppression Research. Examining the project's progress. Conclusion. Research progress at 31%. Estimated research duration in 564 hours. Project will be concluded due to the lack of time. From now on, increase funding for this project. Liao Xing blankly stood there, breathing heavily. You're quite brave, daring to get angry at Impartial Goddess? Yi Feili appeared in the living room and asked. Liao Xing closed his eyes and sighed dejectedly. I lost my composure, it's not her fault, she's only a machine. Just leave it to Gu Qing Shan, Yi Feili consoled him. That brat was already very strong before, and now he's even stronger than before, it shouldn't be a problem for him to do it. Of course he won't be a problem, but as the best scientist in the world, I can't do anything at all, Liao Xing said. As if he was remembering something, his expression was filled with indescribable sorrow. Are you okay? Yi Feili asked caringly. He thought for a bit, then took out a bottle of liquor and poured 2 glasses. The 2 of them sat down in the room. Clinked glasses. The 2 of them drank it all at once. Yi Feili refilled Liao Xing's glass and drank with him. Liao Xing's expression finally became a bit better. He said, Thank you for the liquor. You're welcome, you're a man, you need to think for yourself more often, don't get angry all the time. Yi Feili stood up and said. Where are you going? Liao Xing asked. To cultivate together with my wife, Yi Feili continued. Ever since I started cultivating, I've slowly discovered the mysteries of evolution, as well as a few new ways to attack. There aren't many people in this world who can beat me now. He turned to leave. Liao Xing was stunned for a bit. He suddenly put the glass down and returned to his room. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, Liao Xing flipped open the scripture book in front of him and began to seriously read it. These things are very simple. Even if my body is weak, I'll definitely surpass you all, he muttered in a low voice. The rain still hasn't stopped. The cold raindrops were blown around by the wind. The presidential office. The lawn of the office. The president was standing on the lawn, hands clasped behind his back, silently waiting. A tall aide was holding an umbrella for him. Several Secret Service personnel were scattered around. Within the thunder and lightning, a streak of light flew in. Gu Qing Shan's shuttle descended from the sky. The shuttle's door opened. Gu Qing Shan came out. The president stood still and reached out his hand. The 2 of them held hands. The rain is too heavy, you didn't need to come out just to wait for me, Gu Qing Shan said. He was a bit emotional. The president actually used a clone as a substitute to avoid countless assassination attempts by the Nine Lord. He was really a big shot who was getting older and stronger. I'm busy with work, so I took the chance to come out for a breather, the president said. His expression was heavy, not sure if it was because of work, or because of the approaching war. The two of them walked back to the office from the lawn. The thick wooden door closed behind them, blocking out the wind and rain. Dark clouds hung low, thunder rumbled. Chapter 389. The President's Office. Gu Qing-shan sat down on the sofa. The President walked around the desk, walked to his chair, leaned on the armrests on both sides of the chair, and slowly sat down. His back was straight, his lips were tight as he squinted his eyes to observe Gu Qing-shan. Gu Qing-shan looked around and purposely asked, "Why don't I see General Zhang? I sent him to the front line. Fuxi is preparing to launch an invasion against us," the President replied. Gu Qing-shan nodded. "There's something I want to tell you in advance," Gu Qing-shan said. He looked around. There were a lot of people here. But the President didn't dismiss his aides this time. Noticing Gu Qing-shan's gaze, the President casually waved his hand. "It's fine, these are all veterans that have followed me for many years." Gu Qing-shan stayed silent for a bit, then said, "Very well." At this point, a tall aide came forward and politely asked, "Coffee or tea?" "No need," Gu Qing-shan replied. "It's fine," the tall aide smiled. "There's always time to make a cup of tea." "Then tea it is." Gu Qing-shan looked down and said, "Very well." The tall aide immediately went to brew a pot of tea and brought it in. The tea was very hot, so he bent down and slowly poured 2 cups. One was placed on the President's desk. The other was placed on the coffee table in front of Gu Qing-shan. Gu Qing-shan stared at the patterns on the tea set and commented, "This tea set is quite nice." The tall aide smiled apologetically to his colleagues and half-jokingly said, "Unfortunately, there are only 2 cups in this tea set. Only the President and Gu Qing-shan can share it. No one else has a share. Please believe in my fairness." Saying so, he retreated back to his aides. The other aides didn't mind this. After all, one was the host and one was the guest. Having tea on hand was basic etiquette. It didn't matter if they had it or not. On the other hand, seeing the tall aide do everything so diligently made everyone feel good. They just smiled and said nothing. Gu Qing-shan picked up the teacup and dabbed at her lip. The President also picked up his tea and sniffed it. He frowned and put the tea back. Gu Qing-shan looked at the President and said slowly, "I'm here to report the situation." "Speak," the President said. Gu Qing-shan put down her tea and spoke with a serious tone. "For countless years, the powerful professionists who died will return together with the frozen hell. They will treat the world like demons. They eat human flesh and drink human blood. They don't even let go of souls. Mr. President, you can contact Impartial Goddess for the exact situation. She will report to you the current state of the ice formation on the surface through statistics." As he spoke, the optical computer in his chest kept flashing, alerting him of new information. The AI continued to shine. Gu Qing-shan could only say, "Please forgive me, I have a message, suit yourself." The President frowned, as if he was thinking about Gu Qing-shan's words. Gu Qing-shan took out her holobrain and glanced at it. A line of text appeared on the holobrain's screen. "Jang Young-ho told me to tell you, he's used underground forces to investigate, while Empress has mobilized all forces on the surface to search, but the Fuxi Empire still hasn't found His Majesty the Emperor." The message came from Impartial Goddess. Reading the text on the screen, Gu Qing-shan picked up her tea and took a sip. He tapped on the holobrain and issued a few commands. "All right, sorry about that," Gu Qing-shan smiled and said. The President asked, "Do you have any proof for what you said?" Gu Qing-shan answered, "I do. You can ask Impartial Goddess about the relevant details." The President nodded, then asked, "This frozen hell you mentioned, when will it fully appear?" "It will probably erupt as soon as the rain stops," Gu Qing-shan answered. The President leaned forward and asked seriously, "Then, how did you know about this?" "I have my own channels. Your channels, can you tell me?" "I'm sorry, I can only tell you the news," the President muses. I remember you were the one who first found out about the man-eater fiends and man-killer fiends. That's right, that day you were at the casino. You and Zhang Young-ho were at the casino, participating in the underground gambling. Gu Qing-shan put her cup back on the table and smiled. You investigated me? The president looked at her and spoke with deep meaning. Because you're too similar to a prophet and you're a scientist. Do you know what that means? What does it mean? To be frank, who could easily create such a thing? So the man-eater fiend and man-killer fiend virus were actually your handiwork, the president said. He clapped his hands. I heard you're also a professionist, but I think that should be enough. Two middle-aged men in military uniform came into the guest room. See Emperor Li Dongyuan, Interstellar Fleet Commander Song Tianwu. Two of the three strongest people in the Federation were here. The president spoke. We have first-rate lie detectors, as well as first-rate information-gathering methods. If you're innocent, I'll let you go and apologize to you, Gu Qing-shan asked. And if it's true? The president spoke. Hand over all your research results and work for me from now on. I can guarantee your life. Gu Qing-shan sighed and asked, Can you give me a bit more time to consider? The president looked at his watch and stood up. I'm about to make a national speech. It'll take about 20 minutes after I'm done. I hope you'll be able to consider it carefully. The president left the reception room and walked out. His aides hurriedly followed. The two generals came up, one on the left and one on the right, standing in front of Gu Qing-shan. See Emperor Li Dongyuan spoke. You're a scientist. For the sake of your dignity and dignity, I hope you won't act rashly. Gu Qing-shan didn't move. The general's hollow brains suddenly lit up. Impartial goddess' solemn voice came. Her Excellency Gu Qing-shan is the great envoy who pushed humanity's civilization forward, the first in the Federation's order, the highest leader. Through impartial goddess investigation, the man-eater fiend and man-killer fiend viruses were not developed by Her Excellency Gu Qing-shan. Her Excellency Gu Qing-shan should not be interrogated or detained in any way. Halfway there, the president suddenly stopped. He coldly asked, Impartial goddess, I want to know, does this scientist have the same authority as I do? He started to exude an aura. Killing intent. Impartial goddess replied. That is not the case. All of the Federation's decisions and national affairs are handled by the president himself. Her Excellency Gu Qing-shan holds the highest honor. The president's expression loosened a bit, muttering, She can reach this point with just her scientific contributions? How interesting. He turned around and quickly left. The two generals exchanged looks. Both of them had a strange expression on their faces. Li Dongyuan evaluated Gu Qing-shan and spoke. If she's a top-level scientist, she should be of some use, Song Tianwu replied. Not much use. Saying so, the two of them went silent without saying anything else. A few moments later, Gu Qing-shan asked, Did the president go to give a nationally televised speech? That's right, Song Tianwu replied. Gu Qing-shan slowly took out her hollow brain. The two generals looked at her. I can at least watch the president's televised speech, Gu Qing-shan smiled. The two generals exchanged looks and nodded. Gu Qing-shan turned on the screen. The president had already started his speech. All citizens of the Federation should have the right to know about this. That's right, the 9 lords aristocrats have been trying to assassinate me, a total of 31 times in the last few years. As a president, I have reached the point where I have nowhere else to go. This is the deepest insult to the Federation's laws. That's right, I have all the evidence of the assassination attempts. Next, I'll show you the crimes of the 9 lords. The scene changed. The cause and effect of each assassination. The conversation between the 9 lords aristocrat. The assassin's arrangement. The anger of failure. Another round of planning and discussion. All the evidence of the assassination attempts appeared on the screen. And right now it was being broadcasted live. What are you doing, sir? This isn't the same as the script I wrote, one of the aides exclaimed in shock. The rest of the aides were also stunned. Gu Qing-shan's eyes became cold as she looked at the screen. When the Fuxi Empire's army arrived, the president chose to reveal the truth. But the evidence was irrefutable. Just like that, a shocking conspiracy was exposed in the light of day. The current president has the highest support rate in history, deeply loved by the public. When the public finds out about this truth, the entire Federation will fall into a state of shock. The aristocrats will no longer be able to blame foreign forces for the president's assassination to divert the public's attention. All of this will be the truth of their crimes. What will come next will be the entire Freedom Federation's accusation against the Nine Lords. The enmity between the Federation's citizens and the aristocrats will reach the highest point in the Federation's history. Without a doubt, the Federation will fall into internal strife, or even civil war. Gu Qingshan's heart was already hanging by a thread. After 6 to 7 minutes, all the evidence was finally shown. The president once again appeared on the screen. The Nine Lords aristocrats are rotten to the core, they can no longer lead this country forward, they've dragged down the entire country. A few of our generals have already joined the resistance. The army is with me, freedom is with me, you are with me. Now, I call on everyone to follow me, take up arms and resist the Nine Lords' cruel rule. The president looked at the screen and loudly declared, I declare, the Freedom Federation's glorious revolution has begun. The screen stopped. Glorious revolution? As Gu Qingshan read it aloud, her face was filled with seriousness like never before. The Fuxi Empire is about to invade, the frozen hell is about to appear in the human realm. At such a critical moment, the president exposed the Nine Lords' actions to the public. The Federation is about to fall into chaos from this moment on? I thought it would be a pre-war mobilization, who knew it would be like this? It seems the Federation is about to fall into civil war, Gu Qingshan sighed. Put your hollow brain away, Song Tianqing said. Gu Qingshan put the hollow brain away. A few moments later, the president returned. Are you ready? He asked. Yes, Song Tianqing answered. Detonate it, the president ordered. Yes. In space. The S.W. Divine Temple Interstellar Fortress. A small black box about the size of a fingernail suddenly appeared in the space that impartial goddess had previously isolated. A nano-disintegration bomb. When the space engineers were maintaining the S.W. Divine Temple, a Marine captain secretly planted a nano-disintegration bomb inside. It can quickly destroy the S.W. Divine Temple's energy pool and paralyze impartial goddess energy supply system. Up until now, this nano-disintegration bomb had remained silent. But now, it suddenly activated. Bam! The nano-disintegration bomb let out a clear cracking sound, then quickly scattered into white mist. This white mist was an uncountable number of nano-disintegration robots. As soon as they're activated, they'll immediately go to work and destroy everything around them. Unfortunately, this place has already been isolated from the outside world, as well as covered in special materials that can defend against nanobombs. The nano-disintegration bomb didn't do anything, but all signals on the S.W. Divine Temple were cut off. The entire interstellar fortress fell into darkness. Space, extremely far away from the S.W. Divine Temple. An inconspicuous meteorite. Suddenly, it flipped over layer by layer and assembled into a miniature surveillance satellite. The surveillance satellite was monitoring the S.W. Divine Temple's interstellar fortress for a series of signal detection and monitoring. Finally, it came to a conclusion. Its conclusion quickly passed through space, entered the atmosphere, fell into the Freedom Federation's holobrain and began to beep in the presidential palace's holobrain. Success, impartial goddess is paralyzed. The two generals excitedly exclaimed. The president's cold expression finally showed a bit of warmth. According to the plan, being able to reach this point is already a perfect ending. Without impartial goddess interference, the operation against the Nine Lords can proceed smoothly. As the highest leader of humanity, He knows that the Nine Lords can deal with the space monsters. But if hell were to descend and the world is filled with undying people, who would be afraid of the monsters? The moment they've been waiting for is finally here. Very well, mobilize your people, immediately mobilize the military and prepare to attack the Nine Lords, the President ordered. Yes. The two generals saluted, turned around and hurriedly left. Gu Qingshan didn't say a single word during the entire time. The President looked at him, then slowly sat down across from him. Even when he was sitting on the sofa, his back was straight, his shoulders were level, his eyes were focused, his every movement was flawless. There was not the slightest expression on his face. He was like a cold mountain. The President turned on his holobrain, preparing something. After a while, he finally asked, "Have you thought it through? Pledge your allegiance to me, and you'll receive an unprecedented opportunity. What if I don't pledge my allegiance?" Gu Qingshan asked. "A scientist who's willing to become a servant of the Nine Lords, the Federation doesn't need you." The President's gaze lightly glanced at Gu Qingshan, his mouth unconsciously forming a thin line. "I've thought it through, but I have a question that I need to ask you first," Gu Qingshan said. "You still dare to ask for conditions?" The President's eyes became a bit colder, as a dignified aura appeared from his body. This kind of aura is enough to make a normal person's legs tremble, unable to say a single word. But Gu Qingshan silently stared at the President, seemingly unaffected. "I'll give you one last chance, ask me." The President stared at him and said. The President was still sitting there motionlessly with his back straight. No matter what he did or what he said, his head wouldn't easily move, as if there was something on top of his head. Chapter 390. The President's office fell into an eerie silence, even the air itself seemed to have frozen. Gu Qingshan and the President stared at each other across the table. Within the silence, the faint sound of gunfire, mech engines and the trembling of the ground could be heard from afar. The revolution had begun. As the President listened, he appeared to be smiling. He wasn't a person who easily pleased others, but the sound of gunfire from outside did indeed make him happy. Gu Qingshan waved his hand. The cup of tea on the President's desk flew up and slowly landed in front of the President. "Have some tea," Gu Qingshan said. He picked up the cup of tea in front of him and took another sip. This tea is actually quite nice," he commented. The President looked at Gu Qingshan's calm expression, picked up the cup of tea, and took a sniff. He scowled and put the cup down again. The President looked at Gu Qingshan, only to find that her expression didn't change at all. "How did you know?" the President finally asked. "The Federation's martial saint was sent away by you," Gu Qingshan replied. "That doesn't prove anything, that's right, even the headless scepter, the fake emperor, Tang Jun's death, the appearance of the frozen hell, none of these can prove that you're part of the Federation," Gu Qingshan slowly continued. "But not too long ago, I went to further my studies," the President asked in surprise. "Genetics?" "No, acting in a movie." Gu Qingshan put the cup down and said, "Your Majesty, from a professional point of view, you haven't seriously studied the role of the President, you have no qualifications to play him. Never mind the President, I bet you wouldn't even be able to play a minor role." The President stared at him, waiting for the rest of his words. Gu Qingshan continued, "Although you've used genetic surgery to change yourself into the President's appearance, every action you make is still you. Did you notice that at that moment? The taste of tea. The tea that the Federation's government bought was very ordinary, several grades lower than the tribute tea in your palace, and you weren't even interested in tasting it. When you sit, your back is very straight and you look very energetic, but the President is an ordinary person. He is old. The President likes to sit on the sofa, yes, opposite me. He likes to chat and joke with me, while you sit behind the desk with a cold expression. Our President came from the grassroots. He was elected from the county, city, and county. He has the necessary sincerity and smile on his face. You rarely show any expression on your face. This is because everyone wants to please you. The king's smile is a reward for them. Gu Qingshan continued, as long as I imagine you as His Majesty the Emperor, then your every action will be exactly the same as His Majesty the Emperor. Just because of these small things? Do you think I'll believe you? The president asked. Naturally, there are other reasons, but it's not appropriate to tell you. Gu Qingshan continued. The most important thing is that the real president wouldn't split the country in the face of war. Why? He is the elected president, the most beloved leader in history. If his actions hadn't proven this, the people wouldn't have given him this responsibility. You make it sound like it's the truth. After a bit of silence, the president finally showed a mocking expression. Of course I don't know how to act, he spoke very slowly, but with a firm tone. I'm an expert at dictating the life and death of trillions of people. I'm an expert at conquering the world. Did you manage to do that? Gu Qingshan leaned back on the sofa and asked. The president confidently answered. Just now, on national television, I've already exposed the ugly face of the Nine Lords. I'm the president of the Freedom Federation. My accusations will definitely incite the anger of the people. I've already gained control of a portion of the Freedom Federation military. They're loyal to me. When Impartial Goddess is paralyzed, the military will be at war with the Nine Lords. The people will rise up and cooperate with the military, the president coldly spoke. From today onwards, the Freedom Federation will fall into civil war. I will return to Fuxi and try my best. Have you thought about how to deal with the Nine Lords? Gu Qingshan asked. In the face of irresistible power, they are nothing but a pile of dregs. Even space monsters are nothing but a pile of dregs in the face of absolute power. While the president was talking, the hollow brain on his body suddenly lit up. Taking a look at the optical computer, the president frowned. What's going on? He asked. A series of reports came from the photon computer. He could vaguely hear the sounds of explosions and roars, as well as people shouting something. Hearing that, the president turned off his hollow brain. His face was covered with frost. Did you tamper with the live TV signal? He almost shouted. That's right, as soon as I noticed something was wrong, I've already contacted Impartial Goddess and told her to do it. I'm the only spectator. Gu Qingshan shook her finger. Your acting skills still need to be trained. It's best if you don't embarrass yourself in front of everyone. Impartial Goddess. She's fine, she's just a bit scared, which means the TV speech wasn't broadcasted in front of the entire nation? I'm sorry, that's indeed the case, Gu Qingshan answered. The president uncomfortably cracked his neck. This is probably the most unrestrained action he's ever made. Still the same question, please tell me, is the real president still alive? Gu Qingshan asked. Let me think, which one did I kill? I'm sorry, but I killed a few clones. Maybe the real one was among them. The president smirked. Gu Qingshan's heart relaxed. So that's really the case. He suddenly said, I have to go. Boom. The entire president's manor was split in half, collapsing on both sides. Two figures leapt into the air. Gu Qingshan turned into a streak of light, flying away. The emperor followed right behind, chasing with all his might. After just a few minutes of flying, they were already far away from the president's manor. Gu Qingshan suddenly stopped. Seeing that, the emperor slowly flew closer, hovering in the air. Why aren't you running any more? His lips curled into a mocking smirk. This distance is enough, Gu Qingshan muttered. What do you mean? The emperor's expression turned grim. It's a secret, Gu Qingshan answered him. Looking at him, the emperor felt that he had never been so angry in his entire life. All of a sudden, the air around him began to explode. This was the sound of air exploding as soon as it came into contact with his aura. Earth of the 5 elemental, 5th stage, all things crumble. All matter, in front of the emperor, will have to endure the purest power of destruction. The emperor casually waved his hand. In the center of the capital, a steep mountain that reached into the clouds suddenly appeared. The earth itself began to rise, turning into a towering mountain range that supported the emperor's feet. The emperor stood on top of the mountain, clasping his hands behind his back as he looked at Gu Qingshan. He raised his hand. Large amounts of soil flowed like water, floating in the air, then compressed into fist-sized spheres. The spheres danced in the air. They looked completely normal, but contained a terrifying amount of mass. Star summoning. As long as anyone was even grazed by them, they would be crushed to death. Chapter 391. Below the Sky. After Gu Qingshan and the emperor left the presidential palace. Inside the presidential palace, all of the president's aides had already disappeared without a trace. In a dark corner, whether it was an accident or a coincidence, this place was affected by the sword qi that Gu Qingshan used to cut off the presidential palace, causing the buildings around it to be stuck together, forming a blind spot. One of the aides was in this position. The tall aide who made tea for Gu Qingshan and the president. He was squatting in the blind spot created by Gu Qingshan, looking around. It was quiet, no one was there. The tall aide quietly crouched down and forcefully pressed on a certain spot in the corner. A hidden hole suddenly appeared. The tall aide immediately crawled in and closed the hole from the inside. The hole was tightly sealed. From the outside, it looked like a very ordinary corner. The aide crawled forward in the darkness. The space gradually widened. He stood up and started running. He finally reached the end of the darkness. Breathing heavily, he didn't hesitate to press his hand on the ground. It was an inconspicuous piece among the countless floor tiles. Beep, 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 an electronic voice came from the brick. Initial identity verification passed. Please say the password left by the 9th President of the Federation. As the tall aide listened, his eyes showed a hint of nostalgia and sadness. He only paused for a second, then said, "I like that big table in the office. It would be perfect if there was a bouquet of flowers. Please say the password of the 31st President. Being a president is so tiring. If I have this position again in my next life, I'll have to reconsider. Please say the password of the 21st President. God, I don't want to start a war, but I have no other choice. Please forgive me. Please say the password of the 15th President. I love you, Lan Shi, although I'm the master of this country. I've lost you forever. Password verification complete. Permission granted." The warm white light broke through the darkness. The several meters thick alloy door rumbled open in front of the aide. The aide walked into the brightly lit castle. The alloy door closed behind him. The tall aide strode to the control panel and opened a suitcase on it. Inside were 2 rows of genetic injections. The top row was filled with red potions, and the bottom row was filled with blue potions. The tall advisor picked up a blue potion, stuck it on his arm, and gently pressed the button on the potion. The blue potion instantly entered his body. In the blink of an eye, the tall advisor's appearance underwent a drastic change. His hair was white, his face was wrinkled, and his eyes were filled with wisdom. President of the Federation. Another President of the Federation. Please verify my identity, he said. In front of the control panel, an electronic voice sounded. Please wait a moment, your test item is being randomly selected. Ding dong. Once the project is confirmed. A suit of flexible armor hung from the ceiling in front of the president. Sir, please put on the human physiological fluctuation test armor and give an impromptu speech. The president moved skillfully and quickly put on the soft armor. He took a deep breath and paused for a second. Following that, a calm and resolute voice resounded in the underground castle. The Freedom Federation will forever belong to us, to every citizen of the Federation. I will defend it, just like I defended my parents, my brothers and sisters. I will stand here, for my country and fight against all enemies, be it evil or death. None will force me to retreat, I swear, ding dong. All test results have been compiled, judging from 5 aspects: Language, movement, body, expression, and emotion. Your speech score is 92 points. Your emotions are sincere, your expressions are vivid, and your speech is full of passion. You are a qualified provocateur and an outstanding politician. An excellent impromptu speech requires many years of experience, as well as plenty of speaking experience. Not only that, but your speech style also perfectly matches the president's style. The final test will be conducted by impartial goddess herself. You may begin. Impartial goddess. Melodious female voice resounded. Examinee. Hello, hello. Next, please answer my question. Please go ahead. In the president's 61 years of life, there was once a person who forced the president to do many things that he didn't want to do, as well as violently attacking him many times. Whenever the president failed to do what he wanted, he would be scolded and beaten up by that person, a situation that persisted for many years. If you really are the president, please tell me what you truly think of this person. The president went silent for a bit, then smiled. His expression was full of nostalgia. I think he was just a bit impatient. His tone became gentle and warm. Perhaps he didn't find the right way to love me, but that doesn't matter. I am grateful for everything he did for me. Although he has already left me, I will always miss him. Impartial goddess voice resounded. Is this your answer? Yes, the clone body cannot feel what fatherly love is, and your answer matches the president's personality and behavior. Test passed. The results have been confirmed from the 3 aspects of memory, talent, and emotion. Identity confirmed a second later. All the lights on the control panel lit up at once. Impartial goddess spoke. Sir President, I'm very happy to see the real you. I'm sorry I can only use lights to express my joy here. The president smiled. It's been so hard to see you again. I'm also very happy. Without caring about anything else, the president first asked, where is the location of the battle between Gu Qingshan and the Fuxi Emperor? The Fuxi Emperor is a powerful 5th-stage elementalist, almost unbeatable in the current world. If the Fuxi Emperor were to use his fists in a densely populated area, the casualties would be unimaginable. Impartial goddess answered. Considering that the coup is still ongoing, the Fuxi Emperor wouldn't easily leave the capital. After careful consideration, Sir Gu Qingshan and I chose the most suitable location. Where? The 2 of them have been flying for 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Their speed is close to that of a high-speed shuttle, currently in the outskirts of the capital. The president spoke in a low voice. Let me take a look. The screen turned on. A tall mountain sat next to a large river. Fortunately, this was on the opposite side of the capital, close to the large river. The same river where the giant interstellar warship crashed. The surface of the ground was affected to a certain degree. The nearby buildings that were affected were all blown up into the air, then slowly fell back down, piling up on top of each other. Once molded soft construction materials were also molded into fixed furniture inside the buildings. This ensured the safety of humanity's most basic survival. The other buildings that reached the clouds were still quite a distance away from here, but as soon as the tremors began, they were already holding on to the ground. The unique materials used to build the buildings pierced deep into the ground. Many mechanical arms shot out from the lower 1/3 of the buildings, controlled by the building's balance processor. The president sighed in relief, muttering, "This place is quite good," he continued. "Please tell me, how are our military preparations going?" "Sir, the various military districts' troops don't have complete military intelligence. Please inform the various military districts' commanders and troops immediately," the president said. "Understood, sir." Impartial goddess, if we redeploy the war from now on, do we still have a chance of winning? According to my calculations, the war will continue for 5 years. What is our chance of winning? Is there a chance of peace? There are 2 conditions for peace. Firstly, it depends on Sir Gu Qingshan's battle against the Fuxi Emperor. Secondly, you must lead the Federation to fight against the Fuxi Empire's invasion. On the screen, Gu Qingshan and the Fuxi Emperor were hovering in the air, facing each other. The president looked at this scene and said with relief, "I really didn't expect this." Impartial Goddess curiously asked, "Sir Gu Qing-shan left the president's office to create a chance for you to enter the bunker?" "That's right," the president recalled. "The last time I met him, it was raining, we were discussing the genetic serum, he expressed his support for me. At that time, I also made him a pot of tea, only he and I were there," the president smiled. "Just now, I did the same thing," said the same thing, "every action was exactly the same, and the last thing I said was a hint to him." "What did you hint to him?" "You gave him the highest authority in the Federation, he and I will share the highest authority in the Federation. I've already discussed this with him, so I used the teapot to hint to him. He might have been a bit doubtful and didn't believe me at first, but he immediately began to observe the president. Perhaps he noticed something wasn't right and decided to take him away. Because of that, I was given the chance to enter this place." "Both of you have done very well," Impartial Goddess commented. The control panel opened as a heavy box slowly rose up. The box automatically opened. Impartial Goddess changed the way she addressed him. "Esteemed Chief Commander of the 3 armies, please give your order." Looking at the mobile command platform inside the box, the president's expression became serious. He typed a line of text and pressed the confirm button. "I order all 3 armies to prepare for battle." Chapter 392. The cold rain was still falling. In the sky, Gu Qing-shan grabbed the void of space and took out the earth sword. He evaluated the Fuxi Emperor standing in front of him. A 5th-stage professionist, only a bit weaker than a sainted realm cultivator. But professionists don't know how to cultivate, don't know how to use the world's spirit energy, their fighting skills are also much weaker than cultivators. That's why Gu Qing-shan didn't feel any fear facing the Fuxi Emperor. "Your life has come to an end," the Fuxi Emperor said. He clasped his hands behind his back. From the mountain range below him, countless rocks and dirt flew up, forming balls of rock in the air. More and more, almost covering the entire sky behind the Emperor. A dark yellow glow flickered on and off from the balls of rock. "This is the manifestation of the earth elemental power. Your Majesty, why don't you reconsider? Life and death isn't a small matter," Gu Qing-shan said. The Fuxi Emperor smirked sarcastically. He pointed his finger at Gu Qing-shan. Dozens of balls of rock flew through the air. Followed by dozens more. One after another, the balls of rock flew towards Gu Qing-shan. "Earth Elemental, Star Strike." Gu Qing-shan held the earth sword and lowered it. He didn't move, only formed a hand seal with his other hand. A streak of light descended from the sky. Like a rapid stream of water, it pierced through the heavy ice rain, leaving a trail of light in the sky. The sound of the sword clashing was like metal and rock colliding. The streak of light broke a yellow rock ball, exploding in the middle of the stars. The black sword images in the sky were like flowers in the void, swaying in the air. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as the images appeared, the stars fell. All of the flying stone balls turned into dust and scattered. Then, they were enveloped by the torrential cold rain and rapidly fell to the ground. Seeing this, the Fuxi Emperor's expression changed. Every time one of the balls hit the ground, it would cause a small earthquake. Gu Qing-shan stood still, easily dispelling his attack. "What kind of attack is this?" the Fuxi Emperor couldn't help but ask. "Flying sword," Gu Qing-shan casually answered. As if responding to his words, the Chao-yin sword appeared in the air, letting out a high-pitched woo-woo sound. A second later, it disappeared into the wind and rain, circling around the Fuxi Emperor. It was looking for an opportunity to attack. After countless years, the ancient sword finally revealed its brilliance once again. The Fuxi Emperor roared and punched the air. The void was shattered by this punch. Black spatial cracks gathered into a ball and suddenly exploded. Like a black dot that kept expanding on a piece of white paper, the chaotic space rushed towards Gu Qing-shan. This was a completely shattered space. Anyone who was sucked into it would be torn to pieces. Of course, it was also possible that they would disappear without a trace. But the Fuxi Emperor didn't care about the effect of this attack. He suddenly turned around and crossed his arms above his head. Boiling black light ignited from his arms. As soon as the Fuxi Emperor got into a defensive stance, the Chao Yin sword came crashing down. In the blink of an eye, the Chao Yin sword had slashed dozens of times. Wind/sword art. Ah, get lost! The Fuxi Emperor angrily shouted. Clang! The Chao Yin sword was sent flying backwards. The Emperor's arms trembled and couldn't help but take a step back. Right at this moment, Gu Qingshan suddenly appeared and followed up with a sword. Divine skill, ground shrink. The Fuxi Emperor barely managed to dodge. Gu Qingshan took advantage of that and swung down with a mountain splitter. The Fuxi Emperor couldn't dodge, so he took a deep breath and used both hands to parry. Boom! Like a cannonball, he was sent crashing into the mountain below. Gu Qingshan was also a bit surprised. He looked at the Earth Sword. The Earth Sword spoke with a resounding voice. He dares to control the earth in front of me. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Two figures were flying towards them from afar. Your Majesty! General Song and General Li both called out. Inside the crater, the Emperor stood up and spat out a mouthful of blood. Gather our men, we're going to kill him, he ordered. Yes. The two generals moved. They leapt to the sky, heading towards Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan wielded the Earth Sword and flew forward. The three of them met. I'll go first, Li Dongyuan said. His body was enveloped in a thick layer of water, turning into a giant. Song Tianwu took a step back and sent a signal to the sky. Very quickly, numerous black dots were flying towards them from afar. Gu Qingshan's eyes twitched. They were professionists wearing military uniforms, quickly flying towards them from all directions. Being able to fly is the symbol of a fifth-stage professionist. Since when did the Federation's army have so many fifth-stage professionists? He released his inner sight and scanned through all the professionists here. So that's how it is. Gu Qingshan looked at Li Dongyuan, then at Song Tianwu. All the professionists only had different appearances, but their figures were exactly the same as the two generals. They were all clones of fifth-stage professionists. There were a total of 60 fifth-stage professionists in total. This was a force that could easily sweep through the entire world. The Fuxi Emperor clasped his hands behind his back, flew up and landed in front of Gu Qingshan. He showed a rare smile and said, "The game is over. No matter how much you do, the human realm will become hell. This will not change." Gu Qingshan looked at him like this was the first time she met him. "Your Majesty," he spoke in a low voice, "I've always thought that you wanted to conquer this world, not destroy it." The Fuxi Emperor went silent for a bit, then said, "When my ancestor descended, I knew that this was an unstoppable calamity." He seemed to be talking to Gu Qingshan, but also to himself. If there's no turning back, why not help my ancestor establish his advantage? By the time the other combatants awaken, we'll have already conquered the entire world. He clenched his fist. This will be the continuation of the empire, only in a different form. I'm very satisfied with this. Gu Qingshan suddenly cut him off. If one day another powerful force manages to conquer the frozen hell, will you also go join them? Your way of looking at the problem is completely wrong. The Emperor shook his head. I'm wrong. If you look at the problem outside of this era, you'll find that the succession and change of dynasties is an undeniable rule of history. No matter how much you love an era, you can only watch as it dies in the torrent of history. The Emperor had a fanatical expression on his face. But hell is different. My ancestor has already stood in the frozen hell for over 2,000 years. His dynasty has always continued. It's not like that, Your Majesty, Gu Qingshan sincerely spoke. Think about it, a few years later, when the entire world has already been destroyed, humanity has scattered to the various hells, your wives and children are nowhere to be found, your subjects no longer love your kingdom. No one worships you, no one has any feelings of love for you, no cheers, no praise, no gratitude. And you'll be sitting alone on your throne in the frozen hell, surrounded by nothing but frost, only the undead, that temporarily obey you because of your power. Such days will continue for eternity. Your Majesty, trust me, you won't like those days. The Emperor remained expressionless and didn't say anything. Gu Qingshan continued. Now, let us assume that all of this has already happened. Several years have passed, the planet has been destroyed, and you've suddenly received a chance to be reborn. You've returned from the frozen throne to the present day 10 years ago, your wife and children are still alive, your kingdom is growing stronger by the day, your subjects are all grateful to you, humanity is about to unite and fight against the invasion of hell, bravely fighting for their lives. At this time, you're standing in front of me, Your Majesty, the fate of the entire world is once again in your hands. How do you intend to live this time? Your Majesty, please make a new choice. Aside from the cold rain, the world was silent. The Emperor's mouth opened and closed a few times before he finally spoke. You've forgotten one thing, please go ahead. Hell is invincible, humanity can only lose in the face of the dead. Your Majesty, it seems you're not a qualified ruler, why do you say that? Gu Qingshan sighed. When a country is destroyed, the Emperor should at least be the last to surrender, but you've gone beyond the boundaries of your country and become humanity's first traitor. He tapped his inventory bag. The UG general armor flew out and broke apart in the void of space. The various parts of the armor glowed with a golden light, circling around Gu Qingshan's body. Chapter 393. Traitor? You're saying I'm a traitor? The Emperor's face twitched, as if that word triggered his anger. The Emperor spoke in a low voice. I have so many fifth-stage professionists, while you're only one. I only need to give the order, and you'll forever shut that stinky mouth of yours. Your Majesty, I've always thought of you as a conqueror. If that's the case, no matter how you deal with the Nine Lords, as long as you don't start a war, I don't need to get involved. Gu Qingshan put the silver mask on her face and continued. But you're nothing but a cowardly dog, I can only kill you, how dare you? The Fuxi Emperor couldn't hold it in any more and shouted, Kill him! Kill him! Li Dongyuan and Song Tianqing shouted at the same time. All the clones shouted at the same time, Kill! Various elemental lights came from their bodies, illuminating the entire sky. You think you're stronger just because you have more people? Seems like I'll have to teach you a lesson. Gu Qingshan sighed and shook her head. He changed War God title to Ace Assassin and instantly disappeared. A golden streak of light flew straight into the midst of the enemies. In an instant, sword chi filled the sky. Intense tremors erupted in the sky. Both sides were locked in combat. The Fuxi Empire. The palace in the desert oasis. The throne was empty. The entire palace was empty. Empress stood in front of the window, staring at the oasis. The door of the palace suddenly opened. Zhang Yongho walked in. As a member of the security, he was the only one allowed to enter and leave as he pleased. Your Highness, a few officials are here to see you, Zhang Yongho reported. Empress didn't turn around. I won't see them, tell them to leave, what's the point of seeing me now, she muttered. You should meet them, they're all officials who support you, Zhang Yongho said. Ah? How did you know? I have to understand my clients a bit, that way I can better serve them. If we can't enter the Iron Curtain, there's nothing we can do. Empress sighed. Zhang Yongho thought about it and said, I have a few top-notch hackers with me. Maybe you can talk to them about the Emperor's habit. What's the point? After they fully understand His Majesty, they might be able to find the secret key to the Iron Curtain. Empress was silent for a moment and suddenly smiled. Understand him? Understand His Majesty the Emperor? Her beautiful and dignified face was filled with deep sorrow. I remember a long time ago, when he was drunk, he told me that ever since he was young, He had dreamed of having a pure gold crown, and that the crown had to be inlaid with rare gems. Empress said slowly, I searched for 10 years and finally found a cosmic gem. This gem is very beautiful and is unique to the entire planet. That year, on the Eternal Sky Festival, the crown was finally completed. I gave it to him as a holiday surprise. When he saw it, he was very happy. He thanked me profusely and put on the crown on the spot. Isn't that great? Jang Young-ho was puzzled. After that day, he never wore that crown again, not even once, no matter the situation. Empress was puzzled. He's always erratic and temperamental. I have no idea what he's thinking. What do you want me to talk to your subordinates about? Jang Young-ho sighed. This is troublesome, it seems we're at our wits' end. Suddenly, a commotion broke out outside. Very soon, a minister was escorted to kneel at the entrance of the hall. The minister was covered in blood as he shouted, Your Highness, quickly think of something. The Empire's vanguard mecha operators will enter the Federation's territory in 200 kilometers. The Empire's vanguard mecha operators killing their way into the Federation signified the start of a great war. Empress looked at the minister. This was a senior statesman of the Empire who had served for 3 generations. He was a wise old politician and had always had a good relationship with Empress. At this moment, he was kneeling on the ground with tears streaming down his face. Your Highness, the 9 lords aren't as simple as they seem. If a war breaks out, it won't be decided for several years. Tens of thousands of civilians will die in the war. Empress sighed, walked up and helped the old man up. I have no choice either, she sorrowfully said. At this point, another minister ran up and knelt down. Your Highness, the Freedom Federation's 3 armies are on the move. Their troops are quickly approaching the border. The one leading the Federation's army is the Federation's Marshal Saint, Zhang Zongyang. Marshal Saint Zhang Zongyang. This man was the Federation's god of war, capable of fighting against 1,000 on the battlefield alone. With him there, as soon as the 2 armies meet, the war will immediately enter its most desperate phase. The Federation might not necessarily win, but the Empire will definitely suffer heavy losses. Verona and Empress finally became anxious. She paced back and forth with a worried expression. What now? Jang Young-ho said. Your Highness, I remember that you also have the authority to enter Iron Shroud. I don't have the authority to command the army. The Emperor has already locked everyone else's authority. Only he can command the army. Empress said. Jang Young-ho thought for a bit. What if he's dead? I heard that Iron Shroud's authority is only for the royal family. If he's dead, Iron Shroud's authority will naturally be transferred to me. But who in the world can kill him? Empress shook her head and dejectedly said, We can't, we have no way to stop him. Jang Young-ho looked down and asked the Holobrain. Does Gu Qing-shan know about this? Impartial Goddess replied. He knows. Did he find the Emperor? Sir Gu Qing-shan has found the Emperor's true body. The 2 of them are currently fighting in the capital's outskirts. Jang Young-ho nodded, then told Empress. I think you should try and see if you can connect to Iron Shroud. I've already tried, Empress replied. Try again and again, maybe you'll be able to. Empress looked at him and asked. Why? I'm sorry to say this, but Gu Qing-shan definitely has a way to kill your husband. Who knows? He might be able to do it in the next second, Jang Young-ho said with certainty. If that's the case. Empress recalled Gu Qing-shan's performance in the palace, gritted her teeth and made her decision. She took out her holobrain and tapped on it until she entered a UI. It was a wall of cold steel. Iron Shroud, I'm Empire Empress Verona Medici. Please allow me to log in, Empress spoke to the holobrain. A mechanical voice came from the holobrain. You do not have the authority to command the Fushi Empire's army. You are not allowed to log in. Empress angrily slapped her holobrain. I can't get in. Seems like the Emperor isn't that easy to deal with, at least he's still alive. Jang Young-ho's eyes flickered and asked again. Who's in command of the Empire's mobile mech vanguard? Empress immediately understood, and turned to look at the old minister. If Iron Shroud can't get in, then I might as well find the commander, and stop the army from advancing. Right now, the thing I lack the most is time. I have to think of a way to delay the outbreak of war until the battle between Gu Qingshan and the Emperor is decided. The old minister hurriedly said, "It's Field Marshal Zhang Peijia, I'm going to find him right now." He turned on his holobrain and called a certain number. The call connected but was refused. The old minister squinted his eyes and mused. "He actually refused my call," Empress replied. "The situation during wartime is different. It's understandable that the field marshal doesn't want to talk to you. Luckily he usually listens to me," Empress immediately decided. "This won't do. I'll have to send a special envoy to him. Perhaps he'll be able to convince him to temporarily bide his time. Even if the field marshal can only delay the outbreak of war for a bit, the situation might still change." The old minister asked, "But who should we send?" "There will be quite a few people watching on the way. If the field marshal leans towards the emperor's side, the special envoy himself will also be in danger," Empress pondered. "We can't send a civil official. Civil officials can't even enter the barracks," the old minister also said. "Military officials won't do either. The field marshal is the highest commander. Military officials won't be able to do anything against the field marshal." While they were talking, Empress suddenly glanced at Zhang Yongho. "What is it, Your Highness?" Zhang Yongho asked. Empress seriously thought for a bit and replied, "I know what you're capable of. You're the Federation's king of hitmen. You have countless hitmen working for you. Although you've retreated behind the scenes these past few years, your strength has always been improving, and so?" Zhang Yongho asked. "With your means and strength, you'll definitely be able to do this well. So please make a trip in my stead. Take my secret letter and take a high-speed shuttle to see the field marshal." The Empress picked up her pen and quickly wrote something on a piece of paper. "Field Marshal Zhang, what kind of person is he?" Zhang Yongho asked. "He's a centrist, but tends to lean towards us a bit more often," the old minister replied. Zhang Yongho fell into thought. Empress continued, "Take my seal and letter to Field Marshal Zhang. Help me persuade him to think of a way to delay the outbreak of war. Will he listen?" Zhang Yongho asked. "I think he'll definitely be willing to listen," Empress replied. Zhang Yongho was a bit troubled. "Your Highness, I'm a hitman. To be honest, I only know how to kill people. What I just did isn't within the scope of my profession." Empress stared at him seriously. "Your Highness, I'm prepared to pay you twice as much." Zhang Yongho froze for a second. "Generous Your Highness Empress, I guarantee that everything will be as you wish," he immediately said. "After you go, even if you can't convince the field marshal, you have to think of a way to delay the outbreak of war." Empress said the most important thing. "Please trust in my professionalism," Zhang Yongho replied. A few moments later, Empress finished writing the letter. She read through the letter a few times before solemnly handing it over to Zhang Yongho. Zhang Yongho received the seal and letter from Empress and clapped his hands. Chapter 394. The Forest. Silence. A wild rabbit suddenly jumped out, chewing on something. It was jumping forward, occasionally paying attention to any movements around it. As the rabbit was jumping, a hand suddenly fell down and gently lifted it up. For some reason, being caught by this hand, the rabbit was trembling, not daring to move at all. Zhang Yongho gave the rabbit to Tong Tong behind him. "Is it cute?" he asked. "Cute." Tong Tong happily hugged the rabbit, adding, "Wild ones taste better. I want to braise it." "Tch, you little girl, you're not cute at all," Zhang Yongho commented. A cold voice sounded. "Boss, Zhang Peijia shot my paper doll." Zhang Yongho turned to look. 3 paper dolls were standing on the grass. One of them looked like Zhang Yongho. There was a black hole on the doll's forehead, as if it was shot by a gun. A fat man stood next to the doll, then clapped his hand. Zhang Yongho's paper doll was instantly burnt to ashes. "He has 24 bodyguards with him. He looks very powerful, but I think he's just afraid of death, the fat man said. What marshal, did he say anything to me? Jang Young-ho asked. I controlled your paper doll to persuade him to delay the war, but after reading the secret letter, he said something to your doll, saying so. The fat man couldn't help but laugh. What did he say? Jang Young-ho asked. Who the hell do you think you are? The fat man said. Jang Young-ho scratched his head. The hitmen around him all smiled. It's been so many years since they saw their boss being humiliated, they all felt an inexplicable sense of joy. Jang Young-ho thought for a bit, then turned on his holobrain and asked, Impartial goddess, can you help me make a genetic serum for plastic surgery? There's no time. 19 minutes later, the Empire's mobile mech vanguard will arrive at the border. The war will begin, Impartial goddess answered. So soon. Jang Young-ho looked at his watch and sighed. I can only use the ancient method. Tong Tong. Go and fetch me that man's face. Before Tong Tong could speak, the fat man whispered to her, Your paper doll is locked in his room. Tong Tong pouted and said, You pervert. It's not me, it's that marshal, Fatty quickly explained. Boss, can I kill that marshal? Tong Tong asked. It's up to you, but killing him doesn't count as work. You won't get any extra money, Jang Young-ho immediately said. Then forget it, Tong Tong said with flagging interest. I'll just leave him with an unforgettable memory. Time is of the essence. You have 7 minutes, Jang Young-ho said. Yes, boss, Tong Tong said. She pulled out 2 sharp daggers and held the ponytail in her mouth. She bent her body slightly and leaped into the air. In the blink of an eye, she turned into a black crow and flew towards the camp. Tong Tong is still young. Someone go and protect her, Jang Young-ho ordered. The 2 figures disappeared without a trace. Jang Young-ho then ordered, Fatty, you're up in a bit, the fat man scowled and said. I used to have the guts to exchange a few blows with that old man, but I don't anymore. Why not? You know, Sir Marshal Saint recently learned a mysterious training method, and became much stronger. I'm worried that I'll be torn apart by him. As Jang Young-ho looked around, all the men in black that he looked at avoided his eyes. He asked, It's just to buy some time, and you can even exchange blows with the Marshal Saint. Why isn't anyone signing up for such a good opportunity? No one answered him. The fat man whispered, A hitman's life is also a human life, boss, at the border. Frost slowly covered the ground. On the hillside, a black stream of metal was stepping on the white frost, moving as fast as lightning. The Empire's Vanguard Mech Division, as the elite of the Vanguard, has always been the best of the best. After going over this mountain, they rushed down the slope and entered the Federation's borders. The march was very fast, and the entire process was very smooth. The soldiers advanced silently, everyone was fully focused as they operated the mobile mechs meticulously. Even in the military's communication channel, no one dared to say a word. Because the Field Marshal Zhang Peijia was in the military. He followed the Empire's Vanguard Mech Division, moving forward together. He said he wanted to see for himself, and so he came. He was a very practical person. Today, he wasn't in a good mood, so no one dared to say anything, afraid of provoking him. According to rumors, he received Her Highness Empress's envoy today. Both sides closed the door and erupted into a heated argument. Empress's envoy brought a few subordinates and was about to slam the door and leave. The field marshal directly tied up 3 envoys and shot one of them on the spot. Iron Shroud also noticed this small dispute. As the Fushi Empire's most advanced military AI, it directly bypassed the field marshal and issued orders to all the mech soldiers. All soldiers were ordered to attack with all their might. Without Iron Shroud's permission, they are not allowed to retreat, otherwise they'll be treated as treason. It began to personally command this battle. The field marshal was being made a figurehead by an AI. It's easy to imagine how angry he was. From the looks of it, he was already on the verge of exploding. The field marshal's trusted aides didn't mind talking too much about this. They wanted everyone to know that the field marshal has made up his mind to follow the emperor's footsteps. On another side, in front of the hill, the Federation's vanguard has arrived. The hastily assembled vanguard doesn't have much of an advantage. If such a vanguard were to run into the Empire's regular army, defeat would be the only outcome. But with that man here, everything is different. The soldiers sat inside their mechs, occasionally adjusting the holographic projection to a certain angle to silently observe that man. He's the idol of every soldier. A middle-aged man. Thick eyebrows, hawk-like eyes, tan skin, body as straight as a spear. Dark green military uniform, black military boots, a sword and a shield on his shoulder. A sword and a shield signify the rank of a general. He silently sat on the shoulder of a 5-meter-tall mech, lighting a cigarette as he silently stared at the hill outside the border. According to the intel, the Empire's 477th mech will be the first to arrive. Once this regiment of 8,000 mechs shows up on the hill, the war between the two countries will immediately begin. Zhang Zongyang silently sighed. The Federation has been at peace for too long, their military has been neglected. On the other hand, the Fuxi Empire, under the Emperor's constant training and constant military drills, their fighting strength is much stronger than the Federation. Right now, I can only rely on myself to hold them off. Hopefully, before I run out of power, I'll be able to hold them off for a bit longer and buy the Federation some time to prepare. While he was thinking, a black dot appeared on the hill. Zhang Zongyang's pupils dilated. Black is the most commonly used color for Fuxi's mech squadron. After this black dot appeared, another black dot appeared. Innumerable black dots appeared one after another. The mechs covered the entire hill, letting out a series of rumbling noises. Thousands of black mechs began to move towards the Federation's border. The Marshal Saint threw his cigarette away, stood up and shouted, "Prepare for battle, for the Freedom Federation! For the Freedom Federation!" The soldiers followed suit. The mechs all let out a series of rumbling noises, preparing to attack at any moment. When the Marshal Saint was about to lead the charge, a strange scene appeared on the hill. A black mech jumped out from the crowd, leaving a trail of dust in its wake, heading straight to the front. The black mech opened up as a military officer wearing a black uniform jumped out, standing on the mech's shoulder. The military officer shouted, "Fuxi Empire's Field Marshal Zhang Peijia challenges the Federation's Marshal Saint Zhang Zongyang to a life-or-death challenge." His voice was like thunder, shaking the entire battlefield. At such a crucial moment, such a scene actually happened. All the Federation's troops that were ready to go stopped. The thousands of mechs on the hill also stopped. At this moment, the armies of the two countries stopped moving. It's very rare for there to be a life-or-death challenge between high-ranking generals of both countries. Whenever such a situation occurs, the two generals represent their country's honor. As soldiers, there's no way out in such a challenge, they can only do their best to kill the other party, or die. This is a battle to the death between two generals, representing the outcome of the war between countries. According to the rules of the battlefield, no one is allowed to interrupt this battle of the highest level. Iron Shroud remained silent, and Impartial Goddess also didn't interfere. In the history of humanity's wars, there have been countless battles like this. In fact, the outcome of each of these battles has always greatly influenced the course of the war. Iron Shroud and Impartial Goddess, while concentrating on mobilizing their troops, also paid close attention to the battle. Zhang Zongyang squinted his eyes to evaluate the other party. It's been many years since he's met such a brave enemy. "What do you want to challenge?" Zhang Zongyang asked. "A mech battle," Zhang Peijia answered. "Very well, as you wish." Zhang Zongyang went back into his mech. Zhang Peijia also jumped back in and closed the cockpit. From both sides, a chorus of voices could be heard. "Marshal Saint! Marshal Saint! Martial Saint! Martial! 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 The armies of both countries let out a thunderous roar. The black mech was the first to move. It took large strides towards the bottom of the hill. While running, the mech took off all the weapons on its body. Rotary high-explosive machine gun, high-frequency molecular knife, long-range shock bullets, small laser cannons, concentrated fire armor-piercing bullets, all of these weapons rolled down the hill, letting out loud clanking noises. After taking off all of its accessories, the mech's speed increased by 30%. The mech's speed continued to increase. With the roar of its engine, the black mech flew past the hill, heading straight for the Martial Saint. How interesting, seeing his opponent's actions, Zhang Zongyang understood. Is this a pure mech battle? He didn't think too much and made his decision. The green mech's entire body shook as all of its weapons fell to the ground. Boom! The mech let out an unprecedented roar as it charged down the hill. Chapter 395. In the Sky. Several powerful attacks converged at once, forcing Gu Qingshan into a dead end. The full power attack of 60 top-level professionists was something that no one could stop. Even Gu Qingshan would die without a doubt. Gu Qingshan stood still in the air. Dead, the Emperor squinted his eyes and muttered. All of a sudden, Gu Qingshan disappeared where he stood. A cloned combatant appeared where he was. He was clearly shocked. In his vision, there was a blinding light. No! He only had time to say a single word. The light of destruction engulfed him. The all-out attack of 60 experts had completely obliterated him, leaving not even a speck of dust behind. On the other side, Gu Qingshan appeared. The earth sword flashed, easily cutting through a person like cutting tofu. Go, Gu Qingshan said. The earth sword flew into the void of space. A pop sound was heard. A combatant's head was pierced through by the earth sword. Red and white brain matter splattered everywhere. As Gu Qingshan gave up on the earth sword, another dozen attacks flew towards him. Gu Qingshan didn't dodge at all and used the Chao Yin sword to chop off another professionist's head. The dozen attacks hit him. Boom! The attacks hit. The void of space itself trembled from the impact. But the one who died was a combatant who was in the middle of attacking. Gu Qingshan appeared where that combatant originally stood. The Emperor's heart sank and angrily shouted, "Be careful! He knows a god's chosen skill that allows him to switch places with others." Everyone was shocked. Gu Qingshan disappeared again and reappeared behind another combatant. This time, it wasn't just switching places. Ground shrink. Sha. With a swing of the sword, the combatant died. After killing him, Gu Qingshan disappeared again. Right now, he's an ascended realm cultivator, a famous figure even in the cultivation world. The total spirit energy of an ascended realm cultivator is more than enough for Gu Qingshan to use her skill. In the void, spots of golden light kept flashing and disappearing. One by one, the professionists were beheaded, falling from the sky. His Majesty could not believe his eyes. Gu Qingshan only did two things. He suddenly appeared. He waved his sword casually. No one could stop him. He was like an ancient golden-armored deity flying in the air, wielding his long sword to harvest lives. Notifications kept popping up on the War God UI. Instant kill, spiritual power returned. Instant kill, spiritual power returned. Instant kill, spiritual power returned. Don't use any spells, let's attack together. Kill him. His Majesty the Emperor gritted his teeth and shouted. The professionists swarmed forward. Gu Qingshan retreated. The Chao Yin sword flew out of his hand. Streaks of light as bright as stars condensed into lines that cut through the void of space, circling around and killing the pursuing professionists. Secret Art Star Mark. What kind of ability is this? I've never seen such a technique before, a professionist exclaimed in shock. A line of blood spread across his body, ending his fear. Gu Qingshan's hand seals didn't stop. The Earth Sword was also flying through the void of space, harvesting the lives in the sky. No matter how powerful a professionist was, they couldn't stop the Earth Sword's full power strike. Even after half of the professionists in the sky were killed, no one was able to harm Gu Qingshan at all. Even if it was a clone, it would collapse at this moment. They screamed in terror and fled in all directions. But the flying sword was faster than them. Not too long after, all the clones were killed. It was now that Gu Qingshan turned around and looked at the Fuxi Emperor. The Fuxi Emperor suppressed his emotions, observed Gu Qingshan from top to bottom, then suddenly asked, "What's your relationship with the Pope of the Holy Church? Why do you ask?" Gu Qingshan was surprised. "I've always thought that the Pope was the only one in this world that was completely unimaginable, but now another one has appeared," the Emperor slowly spoke. "Your actions and fighting style are completely different from ours, incomprehensible." The Pope, Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled, during the final moments of the apocalypse, the Pope disappeared from the human realm. Impartial goddess voice came, cutting off his thoughts. "Your Excellency, please end the battle as soon as possible. The armies of the two countries have already met." "Very well," Gu Qingshan replied. He formed a hand seal. The Earth Sword hovered next to him. The Chao Yin sword also returned. Gu Qingshan slowly spoke. "Your Majesty, this is your last chance. Surrender." "How regretful, my clones aren't perfect," the Fuxi Emperor sighed. Gu Qingshan replied. "Fighting requires accumulation. Even if the clones can replicate power, without at least a few hundred battles, how would they be able to exert that power?" The Fuxi Emperor didn't say anything. Gu Qingshan continued. "Please order the Fuxi Empire's armies to retreat." The Fuxi Emperor suddenly laughed. "Fool," he shook his head, "the world can't go back, the world can't go back. But we can make it move towards a better direction." Instead of collapsing, Gu Qingshan spoke. "The future I embrace is the future where the Empire rules the world," the Emperor shouted. Steam began to form around his body. The steam drifted around him, forming a thick mist that condensed into a bead of ice. The Emperor held the ice bead in his hand and crushed it. The Emperor's voice became low. "You are very strong, but if I turn into a dead person, you won't be able to kill me." As he spoke, Gu Qingshan appeared regretful and sighed. A piercing pain. The Earth Sword pierced through the Emperor's chest, flying towards Gu Qingshan. Blood dripped down from the Earth Sword, the beating heart scattered into pieces, blown away by the cold wind. "Ah!" The Emperor clutched his chest, looking down at the bloody hole in his chest. He suddenly laughed maniacally. "Ah ha ha ha! It's too late, I've already summoned my ancestors, I'll soon gain an undying body." The drifting steam condensed into a block of ice in front of him. The Emperor took the block of ice and pressed it into his chest. "This is the heart of ice. From now on, as long as I touch any piece of ice in hell, I'll be able to recover from my wounds." The Emperor looked at Gu Qingshan and smiled faintly. "He now has a heart of ice. You've turned into a dead person of your own accord," Gu Qingshan spoke in a low voice. "That's right, now it's your turn to think," the Emperor slowly spoke. "How can I win against an undying dead person?" His voice stopped. The ice in the Emperor's chest slowly spread to his entire body, turning him into a block of ice. Just like that, he was frozen inside a block of ice, only his head was exposed, but he couldn't move at all. The Emperor looked around, his eyes filled with doubt and confusion. "This isn't what I thought it would be." Inside this block of ice, he actually didn't die. The block of ice covered the Emperor, hovering in the air without anything to rely on. Such a strange scene caused even Gu Qingshan to be shocked. No matter what, the war has already erupted, the Fuxi Emperor must die. Gu Qingshan wielded the Earth Sword, about to step forward and finish him off. But just as he was about to move, he suddenly stopped. A bad premonition appeared in his mind. "What is that?" Gu Qingshan muttered. Something seemed to have arrived without anyone noticing. Water vapor began to rise from the block of ice. The vapor carried a faint gray hue, quickly filling the sky. Almost instantly, the vapor formed a river that stretched across the sky, appearing in front of Gu Qingshan. Looking at this river, one couldn't help but feel fear and despair, as if some sort of irresistible disaster was about to descend. Forgetting river, no, it's not even close. Gu Qingshan tried to distinguish it and muttered. As if the river was alive, it slowly moved towards Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan's entire body was on guard. He's fought countless battles in his life, but he's never fought against a river before. When there was still a few dozen meters between them, the river had already turned into a giant wave, crashing down on Gu Qingshan. While Gu Qingshan was thinking of a way to deal with it, the Chao Yin sword suddenly flew into his hand. The Chao Yin sword was trembling, as if trying to say something. A notification popped up on the War God UI. Chao Yin sword requesting to use your soul points, usage limit 10. Would you like to allow it to use your soul points? Soul points are divine power. Both the Wild Raging Flame Armor and the Tianma Empress have used it before. It's like a source of power that's supporting Gu Qingshan's advancement. Who would have thought, as soon as the Chao Yin sword was repaired, it would need to use soul points? Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised and spoke expectantly. I'll allow it. Another line of text appeared on the War God UI. Soul points used. An invisible gust of wind drifted around Gu Qingshan, extending to the Chao Yin sword. The Chao Yin sword let out an earth-shattering noise, then quickly quieted down. However, in the face of this buzzing sound, the river seemed to be frightened and suddenly changed. The river parted in front of Gu Qingshan. The rushing water bypassed him and quickly flowed away. Gu Qingshan stood still without a single drop of water on him. Could it be that the so-called crossing even sea of bitterness is actually controlling water? No, that river just now wasn't just pure elemental water. Gu Qingshan mused. From the void of space, a hoarse whisper could be heard. How miraculous, a power that prevents me from getting close. Following this voice, a frigid aura began to spread. Hearing this voice, the Fuxi Emperor's expression calmed down a bit. Ancestor, you've finally arrived, the Emperor said. Behind the Fuxi Emperor, a throne made entirely of ice appeared from the void of space. A skeleton sat on top of the throne that emanated frigid air. A loose black robe covered his body, revealing only his skull. On top of the skull was a crown of ice. In his hand was a sword that gave off a faint gray aura. The skeleton opened its mouth and spoke in a low, hoarse voice. Emperor, it seems your entire plan has failed. Ancestor, this person is very strange. Even my subordinates weren't a match for him, the Fuxi Emperor explained. You've failed, the black robe spoke. Do you know what failure means to an emperor of a country? Ancestor, please give me one more chance. As long as I become a dead person, I definitely won't let him go, the Fuxi Emperor said. The black robe calmly spoke. Did you not hear me? Then I'll say it again, you lost. The Fuxi Emperor was frozen in ice, not knowing what to do. He's never tried to please anyone before, so facing this situation, he couldn't even say a single good word. The black-cloaked skeleton leaned forward and stared at the Emperor. When a country is destroyed, the Emperor should at least be the last to surrender, yet you've gone beyond the scope of a country and become the first traitor of the entire human world. This is your failure as a human, the Fuxi Emperor froze. Gu Qingshan also said this before. The black-robed skeleton continued. It's fine that you joined us, but you've screwed everything up as the Emperor. You've betrayed your own country, betrayed your own world as a speculator. You've used up all the chips you had, but you've brought me nothing. The black-robed skeleton's tone carried a deep sense of disgust. You don't deserve the heart of ice, and as a failure, the best way for you to atone for your sins is to become a weapon like the other useless emperors, the black-robed skeleton said. The sword that gave off a gray aura flashed. The Fuxi Emperor's head fell to the ground, his face full of disbelief. Even though he's covered in ice, he still hasn't lost his life. The Emperor looked at the black-robed skeleton, finally begging, "I'm your descendant, ancestor. My descendant, listen to me carefully." The black robe raised the Fuxi Emperor's head and spoke. "Your actions have proven that you don't deserve to be the Fuxi Emperor. If you're not the Emperor, then you're only an insignificant descendant of mine." Saying so, the black robe straightened his body, tilted his head back and took a deep breath. On top of the Fuxi Emperor's head, an illusory figure flew up, screaming in fear. This figure was sucked into the black robe's nose. The black robe's expression was one of ecstasy. "The soul of one's descendant is still the most powerful," he moaned. In his hand, the Fuxi Emperor's head had turned into a skull. Just like that, the Fuxi Emperor was killed by his own ancestor. Chapter 396. When the president mobilized the three armies to prepare for war, the outbreak of war was actually delayed. Following the Federation's sudden mobilization, this war had reached its peak intensity. This level of war could easily cause a devastating blow to both countries. Iron Shroud had to readjust his strategy, and so did Impartial Goddess. The deployment of troops had become more complicated and difficult to calculate. A human's brain can't understand the calculations of two war AIs, but one thing is for sure. Iron Shroud has become a lot more cautious. His movements have slowed down. On Impartial Goddess' side, her actions have also increased. But she's even more cautious than Iron Shroud when it comes to contact between the two armies. She knows that a lot of people are doing everything they can to stop this war. Many of her deployments are just to stall for time. Fuxi Empire. The Desert Oasis Palace. People were constantly coming in and out, passing on information and news. Royal guards were running back and forth, their blood-soaked blades drawing a terrifying trail on the ground. Everyone pretended not to see this. As per the Emperor's orders, the officials had all arrived at the Desert Oasis Palace. At this time, Empress was issuing orders one after another. All the officials who were pro-war and close to the Emperor were immediately convicted of treason by Empress. The royal guards were arresting people from their rooms and executing them on the spot. The purge had begun. The conference room. Empress was being personally protected by the Hunter Association's hitmen, standing a distance away from the officials as she carefully listened to the situation. She simply stood there, quickly and efficiently taking care of military and national affairs. This was a very strange scene. The hitmen who were experts in killing were responsible for protecting Empress. The royal guards who were supposed to protect the Emperor and Empress were now responsible for killing. Verona Empress issued another order. Her hollow brain suddenly lit up by itself. An electronic voice came. "This is Iron Shroud, Your Highness Empress, please take a look." There wasn't a direct report, so this must be a secret. Empress looked down. 2 lines of text appeared on the holobrain. His Majesty the Emperor's vital signs have disappeared, confirmed death. The war is still ongoing, Your Highness Verona, please take command of the 3 armies. Empress was stunned. She turned her back on the crowd and slowly walked towards the Emperor's throne. She scrunched up her face, her originally beautiful facial features scrunched up as if she was desperately trying to control some kind of voice. She trembled and took deep breaths, trying to remain calm. When Empress sat down on the Fuxi Emperor's throne and faced the officials again, her face was completely expressionless. Everyone was watching this scene, trying to guess the meaning behind Empress's actions. They suddenly heard something. "His Majesty is no longer here," Empress said calmly. The entire meeting hall fell silent. After the huge shock, people quickly weighed the pros and cons of the bad news. Those who could enter the meeting hall at this time were all on Empress's side. With the Emperor gone, who could contend against Empress? There was no such person in the current empire. The officials all had a look of joy in their eyes, but they couldn't help but pretend to be sorrowful. The two emotions mixed together made for an indescribably comical sight. Empress spoke to Iron Shroud on the hollow brain and ordered, I order the 3 armies to remain on standby, cease all active attacks, furthermore, immediately request to speak to the Freedom Federation's president. All the officials and guards went silent. Only her voice could be heard in the entire meeting hall. Very quickly, the call went through. Sir President, how are you? That's right, this was Fushi's fault. Fortunately it didn't cause too much damage. The culprit has paid the appropriate price. Yes, he has left this world. I want peace. What about you? The front line. Beep 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 beep. Zhang Peijia's communicator was ringing in a frenzy. Put me through. He shouted. Order. Remain on standby, cease all active attacks. Zhang Peijia immediately opened a cover and pressed a red button. Bam! The heavily damaged black armor finally fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Peijia was knocked out of the armor and rolled on the ground. I surrender! He shouted at the green armor that was still in perfect condition. The metallic fist was only an arm's length away from him. The green armor abruptly stopped. The intense wind pressure forced Zhang Peijia to take a few steps back. Surrender? As a soldier, you dare to challenge me to a life-or-death battle and still surrender? The martial saint's voice carried a bit of frigid killing intent. I'm Empress's subordinate, under orders to stall for time and prevent the war from erupting. Right now, Iron Shroud has given the order to stop the war, Zhang Peijia quickly replied. He didn't dare to be displeased. As long as the martial saint showed even the slightest bit of doubt, he would immediately attack and deal with him with a series of killing blows. Verona, Empress's subordinate, so that's how it is. The martial saint's emotional voice came from the dark green armor. The martial saint's killing intent instantly disappeared. So the reason he fought with me was to stall for time between the two armies. His opponent had withstood his storm-like attacks all the way until the moment of dawn. Not a single soldier was truly involved in the war, and no one was sacrificed. However, is that really the case? While Zhang Zongyang was thinking, a message came from his holobrain. The president himself had sent him a message. Only 5 words. The war is over. Following that, impartial goddess arrangements were displayed on the screen. As Zhang Zongyang looked at the screen, a smile slowly crept onto his face. He pressed a button and the green armor's hatch opened. Zhang Zongyang jumped out. He looked at Zhang Peijia on the ground, smiled, and gently spoke. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. If that's the case, then you're a true hero. The martial saint reached his hand out to the marshal. The marshal took the martial saint's hand and stood up. I don't really care about being a hero, but I really did almost lose my life, Zhang Peijia sighed. The martial saint smiled. Because of your stalling, not a single person from either country died. I'm sure this day will go down in history. As long as you don't scold me about this again and again, I'll be thankful, Zhang Peijia said. I won't scold you like that. As the marshal of the empire, you're not foolishly loyal. You have a clear understanding and judgment of war. That's quite admirable, Zhang Zongyang spoke with a serious expression. Then, you can't scold me about my smoking either, Zhang Peijia said. Smoking? Why would I care about your smoking? Please go ahead, Zhang Zongyang was surprised. That's good, Zhang Peijia was finally satisfied. He reached his hand behind his head and pulled. A human skin mask fell off, revealing Zhang Yongho's original appearance. He lit a cigarette, took a deep drag and complained. That bullshit marshal, he's as stubborn as a donkey. I might as well do it myself instead of trying to convince him. Marshal Saint Zhang Zongyang opened his mouth wide. But the martial saint quickly squinted his eyes, exuding killing intent. Zhang Yongho felt something wasn't right, looked up at him for a second, then turned to run. The martial saint's angry roar came from behind him. Little bastard, you dare to try anything funny? Stop right there. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.